Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1444 of the War News stream. And would you believe it that Iran's making some very stupid big decisions today? Iran has deployed a massive fleet of attack ships in the Strait of Hormuz for some unknown reason that we're currently seeing at the moment. We're also seeing major fires and explosions erupting in Tehran, Iran, including a military base, and also an unknown drone has crashed on a Polish military site this evening. And we have a lot of news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of major breaking news from around the world, as we have been able to see significant developments within the Middle East, Europe, China, and the United States of America over the course of the day. We have been able to confirm that over 40 vessels of the Iranian Navy, largely a fleet-sized element, have raced forward into the area of the Strait of Hormuz and within international waters, near to the area of the entrance at the Gulf of Oman. It is believed that either at this moment they are attempting to exert some form of control over the area, or they are attempting to create a full-on blockade, not only an effective blockade, but a total physical blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Currently, U.S. satellite intelligence and aerial reconnaissance are attempting to gather further information about this large fleet that is currently within the area and what their actual intentions and actions are. Nevertheless, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is still operating within the area of the northern Arabian Sea at this very time, and has been posting a large amount of photos and videos over the past 48 hours showing carrier operations and fleet-wide operations within that area of the northern Arabian Sea. The diplomatic talks between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran, much as predicted on the channel, has completely collapsed and appears to have made absolutely no progress. When approached by U.S. diplomats today, the Iranians refused to budge on any one of the three topics brought up, including nuclear weapons development, ICBM development, and also the funding of proxy groups within the region. However, while the Iranians told us to basically F ourselves, they did say that they would be willing to talk to us further about possibly talking about things that matter. So for now, the U.S. does does appear that they will be attempting another talk with the Iranians about possibly talking about important things to talk about in the next several days. Meanwhile, the Iranians have conducted a ballistic missile test and have also seen that within Tehran, an army barracks has spontaneously combusted within the past 2 hours in some sort of a larger fire and explosion, which at the moment the causes of is entirely unknown. Still, the Islamic Republic of Iran is continuing to fortify and attempting to protect their nuclear programs and research and development institutions throughout the entirety of their country, as they do believe that strikes by the United States are most likely going to be imminent due to their bad faith acting in negotiations and the fact that they're just trying to string the United States along as long as possible so that they can try and get further support from the Chinese. Speaking of the Chinese have had a very major allegation thrown at them just today by the United States of America that they have been involved in illegal nuclear weapons testing in violation of international treaty. According to information that has been spoken of, apparently the People's Republic of China tested a nuclear weapon around 2020 or 2021 within the fissure of a mountain in the Xinjiang province near to the area of the Gobi Desert. According to current standing international treaty, which China is a signing member of, conducting any form of nuclear weapons tests at this moment is generally considered to be violation of that treaty, and does appear to be causing a larger diplomatic row between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China at this moment. Meanwhile, ISIS has stepped forward to take credit of a mosque attack inside of Islamabad, Pakistan, which Pakistan originally was trying to blame on India, stating that India was sponsoring and supporting terrorist forces within Pakistan to conduct the attack on the mosque inside of Islamabad. It turns out it was actually ISIS. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that within the northeastern part of Syria, where ISIS is currently taking root, the Syrian interim government is continuing their annexation of former SDF-controlled territories, and is making sure to bring the entirety of the country under the control of the regime. The Royal Air Force has also brought in a larger amount of aircraft into the region in preparations for Iranian preemptive or retaliatory strikes that may be coming here within the future, and we have also been able to hear, in other shocking developments, inside of Europe, that another drone, the second one in about a week, has crashed onto a Polish base. We're not entirely sure who was flying the drone. It may not even be a Russian that's flying this drone, but it appears that the second one has crashed, and the Polish are currently conducting a full-scale investigation as to where this drone was launched from, why it crashed on the military base, and who keeps flying the drones over these Polish bases in larger frequencies over the past week. Inside of Moscow, a Russian general, the deputy general of the Russian GRU, which is not the man from Despicable Me who talks about girls, it's actually the Spetsnaz commanders, actually were almost assassinated today on the 25th floor of an apartment building. While attempting to make it down the stairs of the 25th floor of the apartment building, a would-be assassin came up behind them, shot 3 rounds into his back. He then fell down the stairs, and then the assassin went and ran down the comically long 25 flights of stairs to make it all the way out of the building, and then escaped the building without ever being seen or identified by any security cameras, because lo and behold, no security cameras in the entirety of the building or that city block worked. So at the moment, the assassin is, or the would-be assassin is generally at large at this moment, and it is generally unclear as to who in the world even did that. Also, we were able to hear that a former deputy minister of the Russian Federation also died in a bathtub today inside of Moscow. I guess you can call that a royal flush or a wash. We've also been able to hear that there is a major economic plummet happening in Russia again, as oil revenues have dropped another 50% for the major Russian oil producers within the Russian Federation. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been able to hold their lines today, inflicting significant losses onto the Russian Federation's armed forces and generally stopping them from any forms of advance. We have also heard that near to the area of Cuba, the United States of America is conducting aerial surveillance flights, and there have been some additional statements coming out of Washington, D.C. today, primarily about tariffs and sanctions that have now been leveraged against the Islamic Republic of Iran after the negotiations fell apart today. We have a humongous amount of news to cover, and we are going to be having to make sure to get through each and every single piece of it. I'm sorry if it took me a little bit of fast talking to get through that intro there, but I wanted to make sure to lay out all of our major news in the quickest amount of time so we can spend much more time on air actually covering these major developments and making sure that everyone knows exactly what's going on around the world over these past 24 hours. And as tradition dictates on this channel, we will be starting with our largest stories first and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. Although, to be entirely honest, between the fact of what's going on in the Middle East, what happened in Russia today, and the fact that the Chinese are apparently conducting nuclear tests and in violation of international treaty, we generally are not hard-pressed to have any small news tonight. It's basically all major news again. So
Man, also not just nuke tests, but we're talking about like mega nukes. Like China's out here testing some pretty big stuff with some very large yields on it, which is concerning to say the least. And apparently it's been going on for at least 5 years, and the U.S. has been covering it up or keeping it largely covert for the entire time. So that's very concerning. We're talking about big ones.
and it is incredibly concerning, and we will be getting into that and everything else starting right now. Moving us on into the area of the Islamic Republic of Iran, after negotiations failed today, which we'll be getting into greater detail in a moment, we were able to hear and report that a large swarm of attack boats from the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy raced out into the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. If I actually show y'all the exact area that this happened on a marine tracker, y'all can actually see that this area is just north of a larger grouping of vessels that are currently anchored within the area of the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and awaiting their moment to be able to transit and make passage through this area and on into the area of the Persian Gulf itself to be able to load up with oil. From what we understand, the IRGC fast attack boats, numbering over 40 from what we can tell, appears to have moved within the area of the international waters in this international passageway right here in incredibly large numbers. Once again, all of these little white dots that you're seeing in this satellite footage right here are fast attack boats of the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy, or the IRGC's Navy, whichever way you want to put it. This is an incredibly large force, and while the firepower of these is not wildly large, considering that each of these has about one Dishka and maybe about 14 bottle rockets on board each, they can pose a significant threat to commercial shipping within the area, especially considering that these military vessels appear to be creating what is equivalent to a conga line that is passing right through the middle of international waters. This is posing a fairly significant risk that the Iranians may be preparing to create a total blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, or maybe trying to exert control over international waters to continue to more aggressively enforce the effective blockade that they've already been working on at the moment. The difference between an effective blockade and a complete blockade are as follows. An effective blockade is generally psychologically manipulating most people into believing that passing through an area is so dangerous that it's just not worth it. That does not mean that you physically have to stop them from passing through. You just have to put enough fear into them that trying to pass through the area will result in dire consequences, usually the seizure of the vessel and also the crew being taken hostage. Generally, that's what the Iranians are already doing right now with the seizure of the two vessels that happened yesterday, but a total blockade is physically stopping anyone from passing through the area. There are a couple of ways to do that, but the two most important ways that the Iranians would attempt to do that is by either physically enforcing with arms through these fast attack boats, forcing ships to turn around and sail away from the area under the threat of an open attack against their vessel if they continue to press forward, or the Iranians may try and mine the strait instead, creating larger areas of sea mines within the region that would make it physically impossible for commercial ships to be able to pass through. It would take mine clearers of other countries, including the United States of America, to cut through these minefields and create paths so that way commercial shipping could resume. It appears that right now the Iranians might be working on the former, which is an armed attempt by their fast attack boats to possibly create a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which once again would be an incredibly precarious situation. If the Iranians are able to force a complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz, this means that the tens of millions of barrels of oil that's produced in the Middle East per day, which makes up almost a third or more of global oil production on the daily, would be trapped inside the Middle East, with basically no way to really get it out into the open world. If that happens, global oil supplies have dropped by over a third overnight. If that happens, oil prices per barrel of crude are going to skyrocket around the world within the next several days or the next week or two after that incident happens. And that means that the prices of fuel within most countries, for all purposes, will increase by every metric. Even the use of such things such as tar for repaving would be directly affected, as tar is also produced in oil refineries as well. This is a major sort of an incident and is showing us that the Islamic Republic of Iran is once again attempting to use military coercion, or what we would call low-level coercion, at least at the moment right now. That might change tomorrow, to be able to try and threaten and pressure the United States of America to more so give up on our demands against the Islamic Republic of Iran to stop developing nuclear weapons, to stop developing ICBMs and IRBMs, and also stop funding the proxy forces in the area, Otherwise, if we keep demanding that, they're going to try and destroy the global oil markets, which has a very significant impact on the United States. Matthew, what are people currently thinking right now about this major development near to the Strait of Hormuz? Are they thinking that the Iranians are trying to create a larger blockade, a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz? Or are they trying to just pressure the United States for further negotiations so that way the United States might back off some of their demands, hoping that this won't cause major damage to the oil markets? And what say you?
All right, so that's a very good question right there, because for Iran to deploy 40 plus fast attack vessels today, and when we say fast attack vessels, we basically mean like glorified fishing boats, but the fishing boats are equipped with 50 cal machine guns at the bow, and they also have rocket launchers apparently on the substructure, which goes over the control area for the boat. So what is Iran likely doing deploying so many of these attack vessels in the Strait of Hormuz as of today that we see in the image here? 74% said Iran is trying to enforce a blockade, while 13% said they're preparing to stop the U.S. Navy if they come into the strait, and 8% said they're just simply doing military drills. And I would say, to me, the answer seems very evident. They are currently either actively performing a blockade with these attack vessels, or they are rehearsing a blockade. That has to be what they're doing right now, because we did see that just a couple of days ago, they attempted to seize the Stena Imperative, which is a U.S.-flagged oil tanker, and it got away. Then they went and seized 2 oil tankers. We're still not aware of the flag of convenience of those vessels or where they were flagged from, but they did successfully seize those 2 vessels. So at this point, it's arguably already a blockade, and this could be simply an enforcement force going out to actually make that actually work. So I'm with the 74%. Iran is clearly escalating. They're trying to choke off the strait, and considering that 20% of the world's oil goes through the strait, that is a bit problematic, and that will probably force a response by the U.S. Navy. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this is certainly an attempt, most likely, to start working on creating a complete blockade of the Strait of Hormuz rather than the effective one that they're working with right now, because cutting off the global oil markets, especially in the Middle East, and jacking up the price of barrels per oil is going to be quite a significant action, especially if they're able to buy themselves enough time through this preliminary action here to be able to properly mine the international waters within the Strait of Hormuz. This is generally going to stop most, if not all, civilian traffic, even if the U.S. completely obliterates the Iranian Navy for several weeks, as the U.S. would have to go in and physically clear out the sea mines from the Strait of Hormuz, most likely under fire at that point, to be able to try and reopen the area to international traffic. Now, I've seen a lot of people trying to say, but the president has already planned this out because he's a great and amazing genius. We have Venezuela now, so the Middle East is completely pointless. And that would be a very big mistake to make, and this is actually one that I think is a bit of a misnomer. When we're talking about oil prices around the world, unrealized oil fields that have not been tapped do not count, because when someone is about to refine a barrel of oil in, say, Baton Rouge in New Orleans, they don't sit there and go, okay, so what about this fantasy oil that can't be extracted out of the ground? Well, we have that, so it doesn't matter. People are having to actively consume the gasoline today, so what more importantly matters in this equation is how much oil is being produced by each country per day today, because that is what directly correlates to the price of barrels per oil globally. And if we go to Wikipedia, which has been able to compile, according to the last resource that we have from about 2024 and 2023, the estimated oil production annually, well, actually, I believe this is per day, of all of the countries from around the world, I want to show you all the reason why Venezuela is not going to be able to supplant or even hope to replace any of the oil production that's coming out of the Middle East. Venezuela is the 18th largest oil producer in the entirety of the planet. They produce 1 million barrels of crude oil per day. Now, a lot of people don't really consider Norway to be a major oil producer, but Norway is the equivalent of 2 Venezuelas in oil production. So I think a lot of people might be seeing the problem here in that Venezuela is not our Lord and Savior of the oil crisis, considering that it produces basically nothing, especially on a global scale, and especially when we look at the Middle Eastern states that we trade heavily in oil with, and many of our Western allies do as well. Venezuela's oil reserves pale in comparison to that scale. Saudi Arabia produces 10.8 million barrels of crude oil per day. That's equivalent to 11 Venezuela's worth of production daily in Saudi Arabia alone. Then if we look at Iraq, Iraq produces 4.5 million barrels of oil per day. That's 4.5 Venezuela's worth of production. The UAE produces 3.2 million barrels of oil a day. Kuwait produces 2.6 million barrels of oil a day. Qatar even produces 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. Qatar, in its own self, is more important in terms of the sheer amount of oil resources that they produce and export than Venezuela is, nearly by a factor of 2. And Qatar is about the size of a human thumb. So I think many of y'all can get the understanding here that there is no way that the Iranians and their threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz is just a nothing burger that we can leave standing idly by, because we combine all of these countries in the Middle East and their oil production together, especially the ones that we're actually allied with and sell their oil to Europe and the United States. Their value is well over 25 times to 30 times the oil production of Venezuela. And before anyone even says it again about Venezuela has these unrealized fields, we are not sucking the oil out of Venezuela out of the ground right now in any larger number than 1 million barrels of oil per day. So while they might have these massive untapped oil fields, that isn't going to help us out right here, right now, if the Middle Eastern oil market gets completely shut off because the Iranians mine the Strait of Hormuz. So this is an incredibly major situation.
A different question here. We do know generally the model of these boats that Iran is sending out. It's generally the same ones that you see in all the other photos. We actually examined a photo last night of one of these Iranian fast attack boats. Like I said, it's largely a fishing vessel with a 50 cal and rocket launchers on it. Very makeshift, not what you'd call like a proper Navy by any means. But is it possible that those boats are actually equipped with the mines that they could use to mine the strait? Because I just thought something. Surely the Iranians have to know that the U.S. can simply send in a whole bunch of our aircraft, and they'll largely be successful, and simply pick off one boat at a time in the strait, one by one, and there likely won't be any way for Iran to respond to that because they don't have their air defense out there in the strait, obviously. So we could pick them off with no problem. So I wonder if they're actually mining the strait as we speak.
They actually do have those sea mines on some of these fast attack boats. Here's actually a picture of them carrying some of these sea mines out to sea. Appears that 4 of them can be carried per boat like this. And considering that the Iranians do have several dozens of these boats, and they can also lay them out on vessels like the attakc, which you can see right here in the dozens, they certainly do have the capability to lay out these mines in a fairly rapid format if they wanted to. And there's also a little bit of an issue here, folks, that while the Iranians are woefully underpowered and under-equipped compared to the U.S. Navy, laying a minefield, especially for them, especially if it's something that is just a last-ditch effort to cause as much damage to a global oil market as possible, is actually well within doable before the U.S. could even start to strike these boats and make sure that they could stop laying the mines. The problem here is that the Islamic Republic of Iran's coastline literally saddles the area of the Strait of Hormuz. So if we see that they go out into the strait and they start an effective, a complete blockade like we're saying right now, that means that the United States Navy, which is going to be the closest air force to be able to respond to this incident right now, is going to have to start drawing up a battle plan to destroy the Iranian naval vessels, including all of those little boats that are currently in the Strait of Hormuz, and to also deal with the enemy air defense that would be around the area, all the way from Bandar-e-Jask and around to the area of Bandar-e-Shinas, around the entirety of the Strait of Hormuz. That means that they're going to have to prepare battle plans for suppression of enemy air defense within a localized area. They will also have to conduct electronic warfare actions within that area, and once they conduct all of that, and also make sure that there's enough air interdiction in the skies to be able to shoot down any incoming Iranian Air Force aircraft, then and about only then will they be able to start anti-ship operations against the little boats that they have out there in the Strait of Hormuz, and also the mine-laying vessels that would be sitting around this very area right here, south of Hormuz Island.
Yeah, really, when you put it like that, it makes it really seem a lot more like a crisis than it actually really is, just in the headlines. It seems to me that if Iran is allowed to mine the strait, which they could be doing right now, it's very possible based on what we're seeing. They could already be mining the strait, and they could be doing that to get the jump on U.S. forces, knowing that we can't just go in right this second and start picking them off. We have to deal with their air defense first. And of course, we have to have time to actually, make the plan happen and make the plan actually coherent. So they could be getting the jump on us. us. And it seems like if they do get the jump on us and they're able to mine the strait, then how do we deal with it from there? Like, is there a way to destroy the mines from air, or how do we deal with that?
Well, there is a way to do it, but it is not an easy process at all. Let me actually go show you what we would have to send in really quickly, because it's not going to be good. These are what we have to send in. These little boats right here. These are our minesweepers. We have about 4 of these, and we also have a couple of other classes of minesweepers. But what we would have to do, in following off of what I was just explaining a second ago, once we clear out the enemy air defense, once we clear out the Iranian Air Force, and once we generally make the area safe for the Navy to operate in, at least in terms of its naval air capacity or air arm, then that's when the U.S. Navy sends in its FA-18 Super Hornets to start conducting most likely laser-guided JDAM strikes or other forms of air-to-ground strikes on those little fast attack boats. But by then, it would only take about a couple of days, maybe even 2 or 3, for the Iranians to lay a minefield if they were doing it in a rush. That means the minefields have been completely laid within the strait, and there really is no way around that at that point. We have to clear them out. So then we would have to go about completely destroying all of these little fast attack boats. Then we'd have to go about destroying the rest of the Iranian Navy that's in the area. And then we would have to keep up constant combat air patrols to be able to try and find and locate where in the hell the anti-ship missile batteries are at this point. They might be hidden in some sort of a tunnel somewhere in the area, which we highly believe at the moment, which means that unless if we're willing to hit them with GBU-57 MOPs, those anti-ship missile batteries are generally going to be out of harm's way until they roll them out of a tunnel to prepare to fire at the U.S. Navy once they arrive. So these little minesweepers, which are generally unarmed by most standards, would have to roll up in there with their fiberglass hulls and start going through the process of literally clearing out lanes through the Strait of Hormuz through these minefields. That is a very long and a very arduous process, and of course if they mess up, these vessels can get destroyed by a mine quite easily, so this is going to be an incredibly slow process. The entirety of the time, the Iranians could be firing anti-ship missiles at these basically defenseless minesweepers, meaning that we would also have to have probably an Arleigh Burke or 2 shoved basically right up into the Strait of Hormuz right behind these minesweepers to be able to try and give them any form of anti-ship missile defense if they get fired at, which then also puts the Arleigh Burkes at risk because they're basically in the gauntlet at that point with the minesweepers. So in general, we could clear the minefield, but at that point, folks, that's probably going to be an operation that takes maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks to clear one lane through the minefield. It would take even further to clear out multiple lanes through the minefield, and maybe even well up to a year or 2 years to clear out all of the mines that would be in the Strait of Hormuz. And that also doesn't factor in that these mines can break from their tethers and start drifting through the area, meaning that while a sea lane could be cleared through a minefield, if one of the mines nearby snaps off of its tether, it can drift into the middle of that sea lane and then end up causing serious damage either to a U.S. Navy vessel or to an oil tanker that would be using that shipping lane in the meantime. So it's a pretty precarious sort of a situation if we allow the Iranians to set up a minefield at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be pretty much a disaster at that point. So we are aware, though, and I think everybody pretty much can deduce this on their own accord, that Iran is stalling. And it's also very possible that the U.S. is stalling as well. But we know for a fact that Iran is stalling. That's why they're engaging in these talks with the U.S. officials. We don't currently know for a fact what their main motivation behind this stalling tactic is, but there's obviously some ulterior motive behind it. It could be maybe mining the strait. It could be they're trying to secretly do that and they need time to get that done. It could be that they need more interceptors from maybe China or Russia, or weapons. It could be something like that. We currently have a poll on that, by the way. So that's currently the question we're asking the audience, actually.
Actually, let's look into that. Why do y'all think, before we even get into the very nitty-gritty details of what happened with the talks today, why are y'all thinking the Iranians are trying to stall for time? And what are they thinking about that, Matthew? And what are you thinking about that?
So it looks like most people, about 56% of the audience, said Iran is stalling to get more weapon shipments from China and Russia to get ready for the U.S. Confrontation, while 31% said they're trying to covertly mine the Hormuz Strait and they need time to actually get that done, and 4% said they really want a deal, but albeit a favorable deal for Iranian officials. And I would really doubt they actually want a deal, because the only deal that they would actually enter into is basically a moot deal, because because the one we saw before, the JCPOA, it was good in theory, but the Iranians will not abide by the terms in the agreement. So it's nearly impossible to really reach a deal with the Iranians because they're dishonest, at least the government knows, and they're not going to adhere to it. So a deal is really out of the picture. I think most people know that. So they're either waiting on weapons or they're trying to mine the strait. We don't have any direct evidence yet that they're trying to mine the strait. That's currently speculation. It's possible they're doing that. So I would generally be with the 57%. I think they're waiting on more weapons from China and Russia, and we have seen evidence to back up the fact that they are likely getting current active weapon shipments from China. We've seen several Chinese cargo jets going back and forth constantly between the two places. We've also seen a couple of Russian aircraft, including helicopters, being given over to the Iranians. So they're clearly getting armed, and it could be they're simply waiting on shipments, which I think that's probably the most likely option. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that in general, I would believe that the Iranians are most likely stalling to try and get further support in weapons from the Russians and the Chinese, and they might also be lobbying heavily for the Chinese and the Russians to put diplomatic pressure on the United States to back off of their demands on Iran, which is also a high likelihood as well. The Iranians buying themselves time only helps them out. While a lot of people say that it's actually hurting them because the U.S. is building up bigger forces into the area, that is true to an extent, but also at the same time, everyone's not really factoring in that they could be begging the Chinese and the Russians, please, for the love of God, go call up the U.S. and tell them, look, if you do anything against Iran, we're going to create some sort of retaliation against y'all, which then puts pressure on the United States from a wholly different avenue, that if they do something against Iran, something else could happen somewhere else in the world that wouldn't be good for us. They could be trying to do that as well, while also getting weapons, which they clearly are, because Iranian 747s have been flying nonstop to China and back. So I would clearly say that it's to get weapons and also try and vie for some form of international support from their Axis partners. I also saw some people saying in the chat, some people have been saying some things like, you don't have to go in the Strait of Hormuz to clear the minefield, and also the U.S. Navy has vessels that are specifically designed for minesweeping. And that is true, but I went through the whole analysis a second ago. I just want to make sure to touch on it again, just in case some people might have missed it. The vessels that do the minesweeping can clear out mines, and they are designed to do that, but outside of that role, they are largely unarmed, meaning that if they have an anti-ship missile fired at them, there's no way for them to really defend themselves against that anti-ship missile. So then they're basically a sitting duck, and that's where the problem comes in there, considering that this is quite literally a gauntlet, and any anti-ship missile fired at them is going to be fired at less than a range of 50 to 70 miles. That gives very little reaction time, and that largely ensures that this would be a wildly complicated operation to conduct, just due to the fact that our response times would have to be razor-like in precision, and there would be no seconds of error that could be had by the U.S. Navy in trying to identify incoming vampires, which is what the Navy calls anti-ship missiles. The other thing is that you cannot conduct a demining operation in a naval situation without physically sending somebody over that minefield. They are either going to be in a minesweeper in a ship, or they're going to be in a CH-53 Stallion carrying a sled below them. Let me see if I can show you all the minesweeping sled. Let's see here. CH-53 minesweeping. Let me see if I can show you all this really quickly, because this is also going to be something that would be an issue as well. Here's a CH-53 carrying its minesweeping sled behind it. But what the minesweeping sled is, it's basically a little detector that they skid over the water, and if there's a mine below it, it will be able to detect it, and it will let the helicopter crew know in GPS coordinates where that mine was, to then send a minesweeping ship to that area and then have them disable the mine.
Wow. That's unbelievable, actually. I didn't know they did it like that. I wasn't very familiar with minesweeping. I didn't know they actually drug a little small boat behind a helicopter. Attached, what is that, attached with a rope?
Yeah, it's attached with a little tether, and the tether has electronic communication with the sled, so that while they drag it along the water, if it picks up a mine, it will immediately telegraph that back to the helicopter and tell operator in the back where that mine was and GPS coordinates, what size it was, how deep it was, and all that other information that they can then relay to a little boat that'll come out here and then disable the mine.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. I didn't know that. But that does seem to be very vulnerable, though. If Iran tried to retaliate while they were doing this, it seems like it could be a bit of a sitting duck.
Yeah, because these helicopters as well, a lot like the minesweepers, they basically have next to no, I mean literally no air defense is built into this helicopter. If an if a surface-to-air missile is fired at this thing, it is also a sitting duck as well. Generally, minesweepers are basically unarmed, whether they're on the surface as a ship or a boat or inside of this helicopter here. So it is not an easy thing, especially when we're talking about this short of a range from an anti-ship battery, like say about 39 miles to maybe even 70 miles inland. That is basically no reaction time at all. These missiles that will be flying at these ships and helicopters are going to be flying, if it's a surface-to-air missile, at around Mach 3 to Mach 5. Or if it's an anti-ship missile, it's going to be near to the speed of sound. It's going to be near to transonic. So given that that's such a short range and these missiles are going to be flying from that far away, which is not that far, that means that everyone has basically no reaction time at all. And that's what makes this sort of a military operation entirely complicated. So what you would have to do is a whole bunch of preparatory work to even allow the minesweepers to be safe enough to get into the area. And you would have to clear out all of the Iranian air defenses in the area. You would have to make sure the Iranian Air Force never arrives. You would also have to make sure to try and find and destroy any anti-ship batteries if they're in the area, which might be impossible to do given the situation. And then, because we can't destroy the anti-ship batteries outright and easily at the opening of this operation, we then have to jam an Arleigh Burke or two behind these minesweepers, basically in the strait with them, in the gauntlet, to be able to try and shoot down with their SM-2s and SM-3s any incoming anti-ship missiles that could be fired at any moment once those anti-ship missile launchers come crawling out of a cave somewhere near Bandar Abbas. So it's
Interesting. So basically, the end conclusion to all this is it's imperative that the United States does not let Iran get the jump and actually mine the strait. It's better to tend to it before they start mining the strait and go in and try to destroy the mining fleet, basically, than to let them actually do it.
Absolutely. If they even get to the point where they create an effective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, by the time we can react, the minefield's laid, it's already too late. And I think that's what a lot of people aren't getting here with the significance of this. The United States must act with a great deal of expediency in the situation right now. The Iranians are clearly alluding at this moment, and it might happen soon, that they are going to start mining the strait and they're effectively going to blockade it. If they do that, it's over for us. What the consequences of letting them do that are going to happen no matter how quickly we react at that point. The quickest we can react would probably be in a couple of days after that starts to occur. By then, the minefield's laid, and we have to go through the whole can of worms that I just explained a second ago to be able to go and demine it, which is going to be hell on earth.
Wow, yeah, that's really something when you really put it like that. So hopefully, I think we have enough assets in the region. If they wanted to go in and do something like that, we're probably good to do it now. I know they're waiting on. I think it's for the Bush carrier group to show up. I'm not really sure what their ETA is at this point. We're not really clear on that, but they're supposed to be heading to the Middle East at some point. I think are they en route yet, or are they still hanging out by the coast?
Yeah, I think they're still hanging out by the coast right now. I think they're still conducting their carrier preparedness drills to make sure that they're ready for another deployment. So I don't think they're going to be ready to head out over here anytime soon. They'll probably arrive in about 3 weeks to a month from now, maybe.
Okay, so they definitely won't be here in time because by the time a month passes, this situation might be over with by then, actually, because I don't really see this lasting for a whole nother month. That would be a little too long. So we'll have to wait and see. There's probably enough assets in the region now. I think we're still seeing, like we've been saying for the last 3 days or 4 days, actually, we're currently seeing a bunch of stratolifters and all kinds of cargo aircraft still coming into the region from European sites, and that we believe that's air defense. We don't think those are necessarily offensive weapons. It's mainly about protecting our assets that are currently already in the Middle East. So we shouldn't have to wait to perform attacks like this. So we might see them maybe earlier than we thought if this is the case.
And also, I see someone saying we have the USS George Washington there. No, we do not. I don't know where you're getting that information from. The USS George
Just
Washington
the Lincoln.
the USS George Washington is currently in Japan right now, not in the area of the Arabian Sea. So I don't know where you're getting that information from, but you might want to check your sources. But moving on from that, to also precipitate all this stuff with a little bit of additional news that came out earlier today, I now have to tell y'all how in the world this went down in Oman this morning with the diplomatic talks that were conducted. Moving us into the area, we were able to hear that just about 2 hours after the talks began, which they began about 30 minutes late, the U.S. aircraft that was carrying our diplomatic team was already leaving the area, showing that the talks had ended somewhat quickly compared to what we were largely expecting at the beginning. We found out why. The talks were a complete waste of time. According to what we've been able to hear, the Iranian delegation refused any attempts by the U.S. to suggest an end of nuclear enrichment of any form of nuclear fuel, whether it be uranium or plutonium. But while they did say that, they signaled a willingness to talk about talks in the future. Because talking about deal making about possibly deal making is the be all end all. It's the ultimate winner. And crazily enough, folks, you wouldn't believe it, but the U.S. has apparently, I would assume that at this point, because this wouldn't make any sense otherwise, the U.S. must be stalling for time to get more forces in the area. The U.S., with open arms, accepted that entirely and stated that they will go at it again in a couple of days and will try and have this diplomatic talk about talks happen here soon. We do not know when in the world they're even going to talk about in a second round of talks, because the Iranians made it largely clear today, from what we can understand, that they, one, will not stop their abilities to enrich uranium at any degree. They also will not stop their intercontinental and intermediate range missile development programs, and they also will not stop their funding of proxy forces within the region, which we don't even believe that third topic was even brought up, because the Iranians had slammed the gates shut on the first two topics so hard the U.S. delegation didn't even bring up anything about the funding of the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, al-Nusra, and so on within the Middle East. We also have been able to hear once more that according to the foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, he stated in his own words, overall, it was a good opening to the negotiations. Decisions regarding how the talks will continue will be made in the respective capitals. It was agreed that negotiations...
That's crazy language coming from him. Like the way he's talking, it's talking as if he's like a nuclear armed country, or if he's like some type of superpower. They're talking as if they have leverage to work with. It's like, you have no leverage, you have no cards, as the president was trying to tell Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy actually has cards, by the way, but this fella here does not. He's got the entire U.S. military knocking on his door. So that's kind of wild to be talking like that.
Yeah, it really is something. And then he said, it was agreed that the negotiations will continue. I do not want to judge prematurely, but if the course of the talks continues in this manner, it will be possible to reach an agreed framework. After 8 turbulent months, the dialogue process has begun, and the main challenge is the lack of trust. This basically is saying, folks, in the larger sense, if I was to boil this all down, the foreign minister of Iran says, we achieved our objective, we're buying Iran time right now, and we're going to keep buying us as much time as possible. We have no intention of meeting the United States in the middle on any of these points at all. That's basically what was being said by the foreign minister of Iran. Additionally, we also heard that while the Iranians were in huge protest of any CENTCOM command being present within the negotiations, CENTCOM Commander General Brad Cooper was present during the talks in Oman, and we don't really know what role he played, but he was present, and that may have been to the dismay and anger of the Iranian delegation, because before the talks began, they stated that they wanted no military officials of CENTCOM's AOR inside of the talks, and then the U.S. brought out Brad Cooper, which literally is the commander of CENTCOM. So a little bit interesting with that one. We also were able to hear that the U.S. negotiators told Iran and Oman that they expect a concrete and significant nuclear-related concession at the next meeting, which was supposed to be achieved at this meeting, but was not achieved this meeting. But the Iranians stated that they would talk about talking, and so the U.S. is saying, when we talk about talking, let's hope that eventually when we talk about talking about talking, that when we talk about talking about talking about talking, y'all will eventually make a concession on the nuclear weaponry side of things, at least at a minimum. Apparently, we're not even trying to touch at this point on whether or not they will continue to develop ICBMs and IRBMs, or if they're going to continue to fund Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, al-Nusra, so on and so forth inside the Middle East. We're just trying to even get anywhere on the nuclear situation, which they've made it incredibly clear in this first round of talks that they're not going to go anywhere with this. And also, they're currently swarming the Strait of Hormuz at the moment and possibly preparing to mine the strait, which is really showing that they are buying themselves time and they're trying to screw us over in the long run. So it does appear that a lot of people are wondering, what is generally the U.S. trying to do here? Because if this is all that it's amounting to, we're not going to get very far with this. As a matter of fact, we're basically digging ourselves a hole in the Middle East to bury ourselves in when this is all over with. If we allow the Iranians to keep playing games like this, they are going to be able to try and get themselves a little bit of additional armed support from the Chinese, and they're also going to be getting themselves a little bit of additional international diplomatic support. Not only that, they might be able to mine the Strait of Hormuz and completely screw over global oil markets for a foreseeable future. So what in the world is the U.S. really trying to do here? And I would have to say, folks, if I had to apply any logic to this at the moment, the best that I could tell you is that we are trying to buy time for now. But I can only say that from now up until the next weekend, and not this upcoming one, but the one after that. I can only say for about that long. By that time, after that amount of time has passed, which is going to be about another week and a couple of days, the U.S. is either going to be ready to strike by then, and we will no longer need to stall for time, or we legitimately have been caught in another idiotic let's make a deal loophole, and we're going to go into endless talks with the Iranians for 3 months and basically let them set all the cards in their favor, at least in buying themselves time and drawing up a general plan that where Iran might not survive, but the U.S. is also going to be heavily hurt by Iran's actions nonetheless, which ends up
Man,
getting us into a Mexican standoff.
I just don't think we're going for a standoff. I don't think we're going for it. I think these talks, I would bet actually 99% odds that the U.S. is stalling. Also, Iran is stalling too. I think both of them are playing the stalling tactics, which is a bit fascinating because you would think that with all the firepower that's in the region right now with U.S. forces, you would think there wouldn't be a need to stall. But like we've been saying, because of the air defense that's being sent to the region, we would prefer that to be in place first. But the Iranians, like we've also discussed in the earlier poll, they also want some more reassurances from their allies in Russia and China. They want more weapons. So I think they're both stalling. And I think we're going to see ultimately that, also, by the way, before I forget, we've also seen a bunch of coalition fighter jets, like, for example, from the UK and other countries that are aligned with the United States in the region. They're also sending jets. So it's not just the U.S., stacking up forces. Everybody's involved. To me, that suggests we are certainly going to be doing something to Iran in a big, big way. And simply a matter of waiting for the right time. I don't think we're going to simply talk this out for months and it's going to be the end of it. I don't think it's going to happen like that.
I don't necessarily think it's going to happen like that either, but, of course, who's to say, and we'll generally have to play this by ear as usual, but I would say that would be an absolutely poor decision to make, to try and get into an endless loophole and an endless paradox of talking about talking like we do with the Russians. That is a complete waste of time, especially considering that the Iranians are a non-nuclear power, and they don't have an ability to checkmate us in the long run, where they could threaten mutually assured destruction. They don't have that ability. So if they cannot meet us at the negotiating table in the first round of talks, I would go ahead and say that we shouldn't even talk with them any farther, and we should be preparing for strikes and completely cut off any diplomatic talks with them, and then put them on the hot seat and see if they're willing to come to us and actually give some concessions. But
there's nothing wrong with the talks though. Like if we're using the talks for stalling, then it doesn't hurt. I mean, you might as well keep the Iranians sort of strung out on the talks to keep them sort of in their holding pattern a little bit. But the risk is though, I think after today, I think both sides walked away understanding that the stalling tactic doesn't have much runway left on it because the Iranians left and didn't make any concessions. So that's not good for them in the eyes of the United States officials. And the U.S. walked away telling Iran, you will come back next time and give us something or else. So they're at a bit of an impasse here. So I'm not sure how much longer we can stall and actually make this thing, last a long time, because I think we're kind of already at an impasse at this quick.
And we might be, but it kind of was those same threats that got Iran to the negotiating table in the first place. And then they still went there and said, screw you, we're not doing anything. And then we went, okay, so now we said at the end of that talk, do something or else. And then they're going to go, okay, well, let's talk about talking. And then we'll show up again, and they'll go, no, we got nothing. Screw you. And then we'll walk away again. I think they're probably going to try and do that over and over, because that's what the Russians have been doing for a year and a month now. Well, a year and 2 months now. They've been saying, oh, America, we actually want to talk about peace because we love peace. And then we go, okay, send the negotiators. And then they show up, and then the Russians go, actually, F you all. We hope y'all die. We actually hate the West. Get lost. And then we leave, and then we go, oh, okay, so that's how they're thinking. And then they call us up right after that. Actually, on second thought, we were really scared about what y'all might be able to do. Let's talk it over again. And then they've just done that in a circular cycle for about 13 times over every single month, basically. They're still doing that right now. I mean, in Dubai, the Ukrainians and the Russians came up with absolutely no leeway just 2 days ago again, because the Russians put everyone through the same ringer again, and the United States is not willing to understand that sometimes countries say that crap knowing that they're able to exploit basically a failing of the administration, and that anytime someone brings up deal making, they go for that like it's hotcakes, and they never let go of it, even if it appears that it's never going to work.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think personally, I think they've got a plan in motion here. Also, this is much different in Venezuela. Like Iran has always been the target. Like it was stated, like even before this current president took office, that he wanted to deal with Iran. So this has been something that he's been unusually consistent on, very consistent. And also, it's obviously in U.S. interest because if they're developing a nuke, if they're also threatening our forces in the region, and blah blah blah, all the usual, then they have to be dealt with. And I think they're going to finally deal with them. And I think they have a plan in motion. I think there's simply just waiting on assets.
Possibly. I mean, that definitely could be the case. And also, moving us on out of that and on up into Tehran, while everything was going on today, at least a couple of hours ago, something incredibly interesting happened within Tehran. An army barracks appears to have exploded and caught on fire, and we actually have a little bit of footage right here showing us the smoke and fire coming off of that barracks after the spontaneous explosion. It's very quiet.
This is like the Russian Lucky Strike man. You know what I'm saying? In Russia, they used to have like the Lucky Strike man making the rounds. There would be random fires at a random base, random fires at a government office. Very odd.
Yeah, I'd have to say it is incredibly odd. I will have to agree with you here. We also have another clip of this, by the way, folks. I'll let me make sure to show you all that one as well, because here was another video that was made showing the fire from the aftermath of the explosion. It appears the firefighters showed up, but they don't have any water, so it appears they're just going to watch it. I guess you could call them more so fire watchers instead of firefighters these days. But a lot of people are wondering, what's up with that? Now, at the beginning, the Iranians were saying that all of these little incidents that were happening across their country for the past week and a half were gas pipe explosions or other forms of accidents. But this was at an army barracks. Are they trying to make us believe that an army barracks spontaneously exploded and then caught on fire and largely burned to the ground today in the middle of the Iranians not making any leeway with the United States in the midst of talks? And also the fact that both sides are getting incredibly close to going to blows around the Strait of Hormuz right now. Do they really want us to believe that? And also, Matthew, what are people thinking about that sort of an incident? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we're seeing the fires erupting in Tehran around, obviously, the capital city. We just saw that there. The Army Joint Staff building was on fire and it was burning to the ground. We also saw another major fire breakout. There was a second video of a different fire inside of Iran. I don't have that one right offhand, but it was a massive fire in a different city in Iran. So this has been happening for about a week. So what is going on? Is the United States sending a warning to the regime with these situations? 46% said no, it is not the U.S. doing this, while 25% said yes, the U.S. is behind all of it, and 19% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I am still completely convinced that the United States, or at least Israel, is behind all of this. They have to be. They're basically trying to create an atmosphere of paranoia with the Iranian government. And they're also trying to soften them up for the upcoming attacks that we're going to conduct on the country. So you got to put yourself in the shoes of the Iranians for a second. If you see these fires breaking out at secure locations, like for example, the army barracks, and it's happening on a frequent basis, you naturally have to conclude that some foreign power is literally crawling all over your country. You don't know who they are, you don't know where they are, but they are doing damage to your facilities, and there's no way for you to stop it. And you have no idea where these people are coming from. That's horrifying for a regime like Iran to realize that. And that's the whole point. It's psychological. They're trying to get in their heads, and I believe the U.S. is behind it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it might actually be the Mossad. I'm kind of in the mix a little bit of the 46% and the 26%. I actually might be leaning more towards the 46% because usually it's the Mossad that does kind of, I guess you could say, shady, covert, kinetic actions like this where something catches on fire or explodes. I feel like that's more within the Mossad's wheelhouse, especially when dealing with Iran, than the CIA. We never really saw the CIA doing a lot of ground action in the 12-Day War or even during Midnight Hammer. It appears that that was all done mostly by Mossad agents. So I would say that really most of the explosions that are happening within Iran right now, I would probably attribute those more likely to Mossad than anyone, because they seem to be the one that has the most fleshed out actual, I guess you could say, field agents that are willing to conduct and can conduct strikes in Iran of varying forms, because they did that during the 12-Day War, and we really haven't seen a lot of CIA ground operations in Iran over about the past few years. So I'll be with 45%.
I think it could be both of them actually. I would tend to believe because you have to think like put yourself also in the mind of the U.S. president for a second and think of the way the U.S. president likes to think. It's very transparent. I'm not saying that to insult, but it's usually very transparent. He also resorts to sort of crude tactics. If you wanted to intimidate somebody, if you were in the U.S. president's position, what would you do? You would naturally do things like start sabotage operations inside of Iran. We saw that also in Venezuela, so it does have a precedent to it. We saw them also do that inside of Venezuela. And it creates, like I said, that psychological precedent in the Iranians' minds that they don't have control of their country at that point, which is horrifying. So I think that would be something that they're doing. We've also seen retaliation today by the U.S. officials. After they left the talks, we saw that immediately the U.S. put massive sanctions on the Iranian fleet and also any type of trade that they're doing in foreign countries. So there's clear retaliation going on, and I think this is part of it.
Yeah, I'd have to say that might be the case. Also, on top of that, I saw someone say, no, it's actually the Iranian government trying to burn the bodies. Now, they actually don't have to do that. Not to sound a little bit morbid and really clinical here about this, but the Iranians apparently have some sort of a uniform or, I guess you could say, central disposal point for corpses of the executed during the massacres that conducted earlier in the year, because we've seen hundreds of body bags being brought into Tehran, and apparently they're either buried in mass graves outside of the city at some central area, or they're being cremated within some larger facility within the Tehran area, or they're being spread out throughout all the crematories in Tehran to be cremated across the entirety of the city and then have their ashes disposed of some other way to where there's really not a lot of evidence or proof. So they don't really have to do anything creative like setting an army barracks on fire to burn the bodies. They do run the country. It's not like they're having to come up with some sort of a clandestine way to do it. They literally just send them off to the crematories or to a mass grave off in the desert and then just throw them all in there. A lot like how the Turks did during the Armenian genocide back in the First World War. They just sent them on a death march, and you wouldn't really find much of any proof of the Armenian genocide in the modern day, because much like the situation with the Iranians, they generally are just making sure that the desert basically buries any evidence of anything. So I hope that addresses that the best I can. That wouldn't necessarily be the case. This is clearly highly likely an intelligence force activity, and I would actually have to kind of agree with Matthew. I think that it might be a combination of both. But moving on out of that, we have also seen that the Iranians today have conducted some ballistic missile tests with pictures clearly showing the launch trails of ballistic missiles that were launched throughout the day, and we've also seen that the Iranians are still racing to try and protect their nuclear programs. So we've seen more satellite photography coming out showing that they are trying to once again fortify their nuclear sites and also try and make sure to restore some of them to an operational capacity so that they can try and keep their nuclear research and development operations ongoing. Clearly does show that they are still working on nuclear weaponry without a doubt, and we are still looking at that as a larger crisis that is developing within the current time. We've also seen that the United States, apparently, according to the U.S. Department of State, has issued 3 advisories urging American citizens to leave Iran. Americans should also expect heightened security measures, road closures, disruptions to public transport, and possible internet restrictions. So the whole gamut of things that the Iranians could throw at anyone. Apparently, the U.S. Department of State is warning Americans that are somehow in Iran to be aware of. Another interesting incident that happened today, this one isn't too crazy and we really don't know why this happened, but a cold storage facility went hot today and caught on fire. Not really a lot more to work off of there rather than this just happened. It was near Tabriz. But I do have to say that it's kind of ironic that it's a cold storage facility. I feel like this fire is the opposite of cold.
I feel like it's hot storage now. They're roasting this stuff like boiled peanuts at this point. They're getting some cooking action going on.
Man, they turned this thing into a massive Dutch oven. Like it's not even a refrigerator anyway.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, their cold storage facility looks like a Guantanamo Bay. Like, what the hell's up with this like perimeter around it?
I have no clue. Like, I don't even know. It's wild sort of a thing, you know, the size of the fire and how voracious it is, but I really don't know why the hell this does look like Gitmo. Hopefully they're not conducting enhanced interrogations against the turkeys that are inside of that building, you know, the ones that are in cold storage. But moving on out of that and out of northern Tabriz, we did also get to see that today the Iranians were trying to still gather more information on the Abraham Lincoln. This time they're not daring enough, though, to send the drone out into the Arabian Sea to go get smacked by an F-35, so they flew it on the very tip of the Iranian border with Pakistan, at the very edge of the ocean, and were trying to look out as far as they could to try and find the Lincoln. I'm sure they didn't find it. They
Oh
were.
man, that's hilarious. That the whole thing got shy all of a sudden. It was a big, bold, boisterous drone. It was a big fella a few days ago until its brethren had an unfortunate fate and met the ocean. So now they're playing it a little bit more safe. They're probably worried about losing too many because I'm not sure how many of these surveillance drones they actually have in their arsenal, but they're probably getting worried they're going to lose them all.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I had to say, that little strike by the F-35 apparently put the Iranians in fear, even that one hit, because now they won't even let their drones fly out into the ocean. Now they literally keep them at the beach. Like, that's the farthest they go, is flying right over the beach, which still gives them about 10 to 15 miles of territorial waters as a buffer zone, and then it flies back in an orbit, back into Iran, and then back around again. So they are. It does appear that it did strike a little bit of fear into them, at least on the military side of things. The carrier group that they're trying to get some information on, they didn't even really have to try that hard, because CENTCOM did put out some pictures today that went pretty hard. And I also got to say, Matthew, is the Arabian Sea known for having inversions? Because I don't really feel like they have the Wasatch Range around here, you know?
I don't know what's up with this. It's like a bit of a like pollution or smog or something out there. I'm not sure really what's causing that. But I will say though, that fleet looks very formidable out there. I will admit it's a very, very good sight.
I can actually tell you, Matthew, where this is coming from. You want to know?
Where's it coming from?
It's coming from India. This is actually all the pollution from India. Generally, the prevailing winds blow southwesterly over India, so it's blowing out all of their pollution over the Arabian Sea, and that's where all of that smog is coming from.
Well, damn.
That's crazy, isn't it?
They might need to get a grip on that. Actually, that's pretty bad. They're literally polluting the water and the air of the sea. That's wild work.
And also, some people are saying it looks like fog. It isn't fog, because fog is pretty prevalent usually whenever there's a larger temperature change, like in the early morning. But these pictures, from what we know, were taken almost around noontime, local time in that area. So this is generally some sort of smog or pollution that's being blown out by the winds out of India and on into the Arabian Sea. So a little bit crazy with that. It really kind of gives you a good look at what that's kind of like. And also, you can see here that once they're above the pollution, aka what we would call here in Salt Lake the inversion, you can see that the pictures come out really crisp, which is nice to see. But anyways, we also got to see some other pictures from the Lincoln today, from the deck, of them operating some MH-60 Seahawks. Actually, oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Whoopsie daisy. I actually didn't even realize this, but this isn't number 72. This is number 79. This is the JFK and sea trials. The JFK did complete its sea trials with flying colors, so it will be accepted by the Navy, and now they'll begin final fitting out, so it can finally enter service and replace the USS Nimitz, which is being decommissioned currently. Sorry about that. This actually isn't from the Arabian Sea, and you can tell because the skies out here are perfectly clear, because this is off of the northern Atlantic, just off of the U.S. East Coast.
We got to take back everything, even the smog talk. We got to take it back.
Man, no. We don't have to take back the smog talk. The smog talk on the JFK is correct. Like, this is the JFK CVN 72.
Oh, okay.
This is
I got you.
Yeah, this is CVN 79. This is the JFK. I actually heard that this one sits there and goes, "Ask not what you can do. Oh well, ask not what your carrier can do for you. Ask what you can do for your carrier." I'm about to get that messed up. Whoa, Jack. But anyways, moving on from that, pretty good news to hear about the JFK. Moving on out of that little bit of news, it is time for us to pop on over to the United States of America for a moment, because the U.S. did have a reaction today to the diplomatic talks failing, although they're generally hiding that under a good bit of wraps, or generally just public statements that are misleading a lot of people. We did get to hear that the U.S. did put sanctions on Iran today, and they stated the following. Today, the Department of State is sanctioning multiple entities, individuals, and vessels to stem the flow of revenue that the regime in Tehran uses to support terrorism abroad and repress its citizens. As part of this action, the Department of State is identifying 14 Shadow Fleet vessels as property of entities involved in the transportation of Iranian petroleum, petroleum products, and petrochemical products. Furthermore, the Department of State is sanctioning 15 entities that have traded in Iranian origin crude oil, and yada yada yada, as well as 2 associated individuals. Time and time again, the Iranian government has prioritized its destabilizing behavior over the safety and security of its own citizens, as demonstrated by the regime's mass murder of peaceful protesters. The United States will continue to act against this network of shippers and traders involved in the transport and acquisition of Iran's crude oil and other oil products, which constitutes the regime's primary source of income. The United States also slapped what everyone knows. We call it the president's fortune, the 25% tariff against all nations purchasing goods or services from Iran. The tariffs are basically the number one move of the president, the real go-getter. So we do have sanctions against the Iranians right now that have been leveraged today, or at least against countries that are purchasing goods and services from Iran. And we have also implemented other forms of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran for the failure at the negotiating table today. So we currently have that going on right now. Moving us on out of all that, we do have to cover that the Royal Air Force is moving in larger force into the area. 6 British F-35Bs have moved to Akatori Air Base in Cyprus with the support of 2 A330 Voyager tankers, which I do have to say, the A330 is a pretty cool aircraft, and I think it's really cool that they have tanker variants of the A330. We also were able to see that within Syria, as a smaller note, the annexation of the SDF's territory by the Jelani regime is continuing, and we can see that columns and convoys of the Syrian interim government continue to permeate within the northeasterly regions and are still trying to integrate some of the bureaucratic functions and operations of the SDF into the Jelani regime. Nothing
nice trucks, by the way.
I will have to say, those are... Whose trucks are those, though? Who provided those to them? They're not American.
Those wouldn't happen to be Turkish, would they?
Huh. Turkish?
Yeah.
I think they might be. I don't... Well, no, they have the Kirby. I don't know whose these are, folks. Let us know. What armored car is this? I'd be interested in knowing. But moving us on out of that bit of news, out of Syria, because that's really a more minor note, at least for today, we have also been able to hear, just to add this to our Middle Eastern news, these 2 points before we move on, that ISIS has taken credit for the mosque attack that happened in Islamabad, which just yesterday the Pakistanis were trying to claim the Indians were the ones who actually did that by supporting a pro-Indian terrorist group within Pakistan. It turns out ISIS was the one that did it, and they've taken credit today. Additionally, we've also seen that at Diego Garcia, there is still a decent amount of aircraft here, not a large amount like B-2s and whatnot, but we were able to see 2 P-8 Poseidons, which are generally anti-submarine and maritime patrol aircraft that were present, along with 2 MC-130J Commando 2s and 3 KC-135 Stratotankers, which are all present and visible during the satellite photography, which we can see right here on screen. We don't really know what's up with this group, and we could go into a lot of speculation about it, but that's currently the force presence at Diego Garcia at the moment. And so with that, folks, we're now going to be moving on out of the Middle East and into our interim news, which is the Chinese illegal nuclear test that the U.S. is alleging that they've conducted. And before we get on into that, though, I do have to say that I thank all 90,000 of y'all who have watched so far for being here with us tonight. And not only that, the whopping 17.3 thousand people who were here at the peak. I have to say that we're always entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all continue to consider this channel to be a primary source of news, and I hope that y'all found our news coverage and analysis of what's going on in the Middle East to be of sound quality and well researched tonight. I made sure to do a decent amount of research before we came on air about anti-mine or mine-sweeping countermeasures and such things to be able to talk about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz somewhat more accurately, and I hope that is reflected in our analysis that we were able to do earlier. But before we move on into the rest of our news, particularly from China and primarily Europe, with a little bit of extra news coming out of America, I do want to make sure that we take 3 questions from the chat, and then we're going to be moving on into the massive news that we've gotten out of China and Europe. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so with that, jumping into our first of 3 of our first segment of Super Chats, this one goes to none other than Nick Hines. And thank you very much, Nick, for that very generous $100 support, the largest one of the night. And we do appreciate that support because like we always say, kind of like a broken record, it's that support that keeps the channel running, and we do appreciate that. And Nick said, LSA forever. And do you think Israel might strike Iran before the United States?
That's a good question, and I'm thinking that in this particular instance, they probably might not. We're not really hearing a lot of talk from the Israelis at the moment about really wanting to conduct strikes, and they usually kind of telegraph that a little bit if they are going to, because we've seen that in the past, and they don't really seem to be doing that right now. So if they are planning on that, they are keeping that under wraps this time, which is highly unusual for them from what we've seen before. Or they might be waiting to see when the U.S. strikes Iran, and then they will join in. And I think that's more so what's going to likely happen, is that the Israelis are just going to wait for the U.S. to open up their strikes, and they will be there dropping bombs on Iran at the very moment that the U.S. is as well. I think that's what they're generally waiting for at the moment, and I don't really think the Israelis are going to go out of their way to attack, because the U.S. might also be signaling to them, we don't have enough air defenses in the area yet, so don't do that, because we're not ready to set up a proper air defense when the Iranians fire back at y'all or us. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a humongous thanks to you for that massive and incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you that went out of your way to support this channel, hundreds of thousands and millions of people a month would not be able to listen to this channel. Y'all help us, the few that support the channel, to pay our bills and keep the lights on so everyone else can truly enjoy free and well-researched news. And we thank you massively for that, because if it wasn't for folks like you, the entire dream wouldn't work. That sounds like a company out there somewhere, but still, a huge thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our second super chat goes to none other than Mark Ead. And thank you very much, Mark, for that $50 support. And we also appreciate that very much, very generously as well. And Mark said, greetings, enforcers and enforcerettes, and peel off one from the chat. An LSA from New Zealand in the South.
Hey, and a big shout out to Mark Ead, New Zealander of the South, a part of the LSA's New Zealand Brigade. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to peel one right out of the chat, like a peach, a banana, a delicious fruit. I don't know which one's peel, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Bananas peel, oranges peel. Hell, I think every fruit peels except for apples. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on that? I don't know. But beyond that, I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And I got to thank you massively for being one of the folks who supports this channel prolifically on the near daily. You help us out a lot in making this thing possible. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got from the live chat in honor of Mark Ead?
And the live chat question goes to Bread and Butter, who said, could you show us what a modern marine mine even looks like?
Let me, actually, they have a lot of different looks. Let's see. Let me go pull up a U.S. sea mine to be able to try and show you one of those, if I can. Oh, geez. I'm going to have to try and look around for one of these, because I'm trying to see which ones are which. Oh, I think this is, I think these are the ones. Right here. Yeah, here they are. I believe these are it. They're basically just bombs these days. That's what we have. But the Iranians have the old classic sea mine like this one. They generally use these. I don't know what the variant is called inside of Iran, but these are the ones that they drop off in the water. And no, they do not bob above the waterline. And that's something that I think a lot of people are kind of a little bit confused on, because a lot of people say, well, just hit them with a drone. You can't see them with a drone. These things are about 10 feet below the waterline, or 8 feet below the waterline. And at that depth, in most areas of the ocean with the sun shining on the ocean surface, you're never going to see these. That's why there's such a huge risk. You can't see them. They don't float on the surface to where you can visibly see the little spikes jutting out of the side that if you press onto one, it's going to blow up. That's not how that works. So generally, that's why you would have to send in minesweepers, like the CH-53 with a minesweeping sled, or a actual minesweeping boat, to be able to try and take a look around, find out where they are, and then defuse them physically. So, a little bit interesting sort of a deal. I actually would, unfortunately, tell you that I'm a little bit ignorant on what the United States would use as a sea mine. That appears to be what we would use as a sea mine, but unfortunately, that's something that I didn't really research a lot today, so I'd have to do a little bit of additional research and figuring to try and figure out exactly what we use. But the Iranians, let me go pull up an Iranian sea mine. Iranian sea mines are quite literally those. That's one that is actually broken from its tether right there. But let me see if I can find you. Here we go. Here are the Iranians on board one of their own boats, actually deploying the mines off the deck. So these are literally like your classic sea mine that you would know from, say, the Second World War. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I also just saw someone say a Mark 66. Let me go pull that up. Mark 66 sea mine. Let's go take a little gander at this. So let's see here. Oh, this is like from the First World War. So this is basically what you're saying the modern ones look like, for the Iranians at least, and they really do look like that. But anyways, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of our major news of the illegal nuclear tests in China, and also the attempted assassination today of a Russian general of the Spetsnaz. So Matthew, what is our final question of this segment?
All right, so the final one of this segment goes to none other than Howard Mendelson, another longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, Howard, for that $50 support, and that is very generous of you, and we do appreciate that. He said, what does Iran have to do before we take action? And they have to do absolutely nothing. That's the beautiful part about it. Iran has no responsibilities at all. All they have to do is sit back, keep being sickos in the government, and we will do the work. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say generally nothing. I have to agree with Matthew there. They don't really have to do anything. We could conduct military actions against Iran at any moment. We have plenty of justification to do anything to them right now for two reasons. One, crimes against humanity, and two, development and research of nuclear weaponry, which is a violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, I believe, of 1960. So those two general reasons right there give us all the reason we need to go ahead and start conducting strikes on Iran, no matter what they do. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us, folks, to move on into the rest of our news for the night. And we have some real interesting ones. It's time to bring y'all to China. We've got something crazy coming out of China. Way off in the faraway lands of Western China, we have apparently been told that according to the United States Secretary of State, Thomas G. Dinano, who is the, let's see, and this is the official account of the Undersecretary of the Department of State for Arms Control and International Security. The following was stated while I stammer my way through that. I sound like King George VI. I have a get it out, Bertie. Stammer. But anyways, with that, we have been able to hear that China has conducted nuclear explosive tests, including preparing for tests with designated yields in the hundreds of tons. China has used decoupling, a method to decrease the effectiveness of seismic monitoring to hide its activities from the world. China conducted one such yield-producing nuclear test on the 22nd of June of 2020. So it appears that according to the United States Undersecretary of State, Thomas G. Dinano, or Dinino, whichever way you want to say it, the Chinese have conducted an illegal nuclear test. I do want to say this, though. From what we know, it's not a megaton. So luckily, it's not like absolutely freaking ginormous nuclear weapon. Apparently, it's in the hundreds of tons. So actually, I'll be entirely honest with you. I don't know if he means the hundreds of tons as in megatons or in the hundreds of tons, because that actually would be, I believe, two different measurements, and tons is smaller than megatons. So we're going to have to look into that one. Matthew, could you get us some information on that? Is like hundreds of tons, how big would that be on average? Because it apparently, at least in this specific wordage, is not megatons. So how large would these explosive yields be that they're supposedly testing on a rough ballpark estimate?
Yeah, let's see if we can get that information real quick here. Let's see if we can get a clarification on how big this is. So I see a bunch of mainstream outlets reporting the hundreds of tons quotation that we see there in the post, but I'm not seeing any clarification of exactly how large these are. So that is interesting here. I have a distinct feeling that maybe he's referring to perhaps a different unit of measurement, because I don't think they measure it in just tons, do they? I think it's in kilotons or megatons, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And I would have to say that this is a rather confusing thing for that reason, because we don't really know what the hell he's even really saying, because now that I'm looking at it, folks, there is no such thing as just hundreds of tons. It's usually hundreds of kilotons or hundreds of megatons, which are generally the measurements of explosive size that we use and are commonly familiar with in America on explosive mass. I don't really see anyone out there just using tons as a system of measurement without adding kilotons or megatons to the answer. So
So it does appear that pretty much every single nuclear warhead that China possesses, they obviously have a whole wide range of yields, from smaller yields to more high yield capabilities. But generally speaking, their modern strategic warheads roughly have a yield of about 650 kilotons. We're talking about kilotons there, not just tons. You got to add the kilo part to it. Also, we are seeing that apparently some of the older warheads have a 4.4 megaton yield, all the way up to a 4.5 megaton yield. So I'm not seeing any warhead that they even have here that is anything around the ton range. It appears to be much larger than that.
So it appears, folks, according to some folks in the chat, and let me make sure to check this. Let's see, how large is a kiloton? Let's find out. So that would be 1,000 tons of TNT. So it appears that if they're conducting any tests, these are almost tactical nuclear in size, apparently, because if this is in the hundreds of tons, which we don't really use as a conventional measurement, usually it's something along the lines of kilotons or megatons. If it's just hundreds of tons, that means that this is smaller than, these explosions have been smaller than a singular kiloton, which is fairly small in its own right, especially for nuclear weaponry. So these are fairly small nuclear tests that are apparently being conducted, and they're saying that the reason why these tests were conducted and are generally not really being noticed that much by most countries is that they're using a system called decoupling, which apparently decreases the effectiveness of seismic monitoring, where, you know, say if an earthquake goes off somewhere that's a certain magnitude at a certain height, we go, ah, yes, that's clearly some sort of a nuclear test. So apparently they've been trying to avoid people finding out about their nuclear testing, according to the undersecretary, by only conducting tests in the hundreds of tons, and generally conducting these, from what we know, in the fissure of a mountain somewhere within western China in the Xinjiang province of the Western Theater Command. We actually got a satellite picture today that apparently shows this nuclear facility, according to the Wall Street Journal, using Maxar satellite photography. This appears to be the facility in question. You can actually see the tunnel entrance here that leads into the fissure inside of the mountain, to where they were able to conduct these nuclear tests at a fairly small scale. These are not wildly large. This is not like the Tsar bomb that they're detonating in this mountain over and over. It's fairly small. So apparently, from what we know, the U.S. is now on to this, and they are making a fairly big diplomatic deal about this. Because what's interesting, folks, is that by international treaty, nuclear testing has actually been banned for decades, and China is actually one of the signing members of that testing ban treaty. That's why the United States hasn't been conducting any nuclear tests as of late. But apparently, we're now saying that the Chinese have conducted a nuclear test about 6 years ago, nearly, really 5.5 years ago at this point, inside of this mountain in that tunnel. And what are people thinking about that, Matthew? At least how the United States came to know about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so now that U.S. officials are claiming that China's conducted covert nuclear tests for mega nukes or perhaps even tactical nukes, what does this mean? 45% said a Chinese general likely leaked the information, and that's how the USA knows about it, while 30% said the U.S. has known about it, but they've been covering it up the entire time, and 11% said it sounds like U.S. propaganda for their own reasons. And there's a couple of caveats here that makes me think that maybe this is information that could have been leaked by a Chinese general or some type of Chinese official, because there's a couple of different key words that they included there. For one thing, they said it was very hard to detect these Chinese nuclear tests because they use something or a technique called decoupling. And what that means is they go under the Earth's soil and they find areas that are cavernous, like for example, underground like salt caves and things like this, and they'll actually detonate the nuke from there, which actually buffers some of the seismic effect from the nuclear explosion and makes it very hard to detect on seismographs by U.S. intelligence. So that part right there is very detailed. That is something there that likely came from human or human intelligence. They probably learned that through a Chinese source, because otherwise, how do they know about it? They would have to hear about it from someone that had that inside knowledge. And once again, if they can't detect it and they can barely see it, then how'd they learn about it? So I have a strong suspicion that a Chinese general likely did leak that information. We did see accusations against the most recent ousting of a Chinese general that allegedly he might have leaked some nuclear information to the United States, and it could be the U.S. got the information from him, perhaps. So I'm with the 47%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would be highly likely of the belief that these are the nuclear secrets that Zheng Yuzha may have disclosed to the United States. like that now is starting to add two and two together. I don't know if you just thought of that, Matthew, but that just hit me. The Chinese just arrested the guy saying he told nuclear secrets to the United States. The U.S. has now just come out and said, we know that the Chinese are doing this, and the reason why they weren't caught 6 years ago is because of this, that, and the other. How in the world would they know about that unless it was Zhang Yuzha who told them? So apparently he did tell nuclear secrets to the United States of America, because now we're openly saying that we know about this thing.
Yeah, they had to learn about the technique somehow. Now obviously we can't prove that he was the exact person to give that information, but the U.S. is wording it in a way that makes it sound like they knew about it the entire time. But if you really examine the statement closely, I still am of the strong belief that they just learned about it and now they're trying to pretend like they knew. But that this is explaining why we didn't detect them previously, is because China is using the decoupling method to prevent the seismographic activity from being picked up on our sensors. So that might explain it. Also, by the way, from a world peace perspective, that's not good that China's been testing nukes again, because I believe China was also a party to our nuclear de-escalation treaty. Am I correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so that means they were violating it, if this is indeed the case, which is not good. And also makes you wonder, why is China developing brand new nuclear weapons if they truly want peace? Seems a little bit strange. Seems almost kind of like Russia a little bit. So I suspect this will likely trigger a proportional response by the United States. It'll probably give the United States permission to start testing our own nukes and doing underground tests ourselves to try to match this new threat that we just learned about.
Isn't it weird how all of these peace-loving countries just want to come up with many different ways of harming as many people as they can? It's so interesting to me about that, you know? It's like, I gotta be honest. Oh my God. Dude, I gotta be honest with y'all. Every time we look at China, it's actually quite shocking, how the reality of China is, you know, I'm not gonna lie. But beyond that, though, I would have to say that clearly the Chinese general definitely did leak this, and it appears that the Chinese are trying to work on the development of new nuclear weaponry, possibly even using the smaller explosions to try and create proofs of concept of different forms of warhead designs that they would then scale up after these tests are concluded. So with that in mind, I hope that does address that news well. And it's now time for us to move on over and into Cuba. This is our last piece of news before we get on into all the big ones inside of Europe. The U.S. is gathering some general intelligence against the Cubans. We flew a little RC-135V all the way around Cuba today. It was just sniffing, observing, looking, listening. It was doing what it normally does. It's gathering information. That's basically it. So moving on out of the area of the Caribbean, I was going to make that mysterious, but to be entirely honest, it just is what it is. Moving on from that, though, it's time for us to get on into Moscow. We have a myriad of interesting things to talk about out of Moscow today. First off, we were able to confirm that a Russian general was nearly assassinated today outside of his apartment. We hear that the guy is clinging on to life right now, but to give you all a little bit of the story, an assassination attempt was carried out in Moscow against Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev of the Russian Ministry of Defense. An unidentified person fired 3 shots into his back and then fled the scene. The Lieutenant General has been hospitalized with gunshot wounds.
In the back, that's a cowardly move. Like, what kind of assassin is this? Like the coward of the county?
Well, it's smart kind. You're not trying to give him a fair fight. You know, it's like
yeah. But I mean, in the back though. I mean, that's usually like considered pretty rough even for assassins.
Well, I mean, you know, like that's how they do it. I mean, like that's how everyone does it. You're never going to sit there and get in front of someone and say, you know, Donald Trump says hello, pop me, or something, like, you know, or President Zelenskyy says hello. You're never going to do that. I mean, like that'd be ridiculous. You don't want the guy to ever see you. I mean, what if he lived? Then he could sit there when he wakes up and he goes, he's 5'7". He's got brown hair. He looks like the, you know, and then he's got all the info on you. So you don't want to be seen. I mean, like that's just. Like, assassinations are cowardly things for the most part. You know, you never give anyone a fair chance. But beyond that, though, what I'd have to tell you, though, is a little bit of additional information about this guy here. This guy was the Deputy General of the Russian GRU. The Russian GRU is the Special Forces Command of the Russian Federation that operates the Spetsnaz. It operates basically every single special force and intelligence agency that's generally out there in the Russian Federation. So this guy was on up there as far as special operations go. He was involved in the Syrian Civil War. He was involved in the war in Ukraine, still was involved in the war in Ukraine. And he was also involved in the Russian Federation's action operations against the Wagner unit during the Wagner coup of the summer of 2023. So this guy has been around the block and seen a lot. Apparently, he's not going to be seeing a lot more, or might not be seeing a lot more from this point on here soon, because apparently he's fighting for his life in the hospital right now. And what is even crazier, folks, this is where it enters clown world sorts of realities for Russia. This guy is the deputy general of the entirety of the Russian GRU. So this guy is the second in command, basically, the second in command general of the Special Operations Command in Russia. This guy lived in an apartment building on the 25th floor. From what we understand, he was shot in the stairwell of the 25th floor of this building, which suggests that the building he was in did not have a working elevator, and he was having to walk down all 25 flights of stairs to get to the bottom of the building to leave it. That means that every day this guy goes to work, he has to walk down 25 flights of stairs, and then every day he comes home, he has to walk up 25 flights of stairs. So this guy is getting his steps in before he even gets to work. Another thing that's even crazier is that not a single security camera in this building or on the entire block works, because nobody has any security camera footage of the guy who shot him. Nobody even knows what he looks like. So right now the assassin is entirely at large. Nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. It's really something absolutely insane. I'm not going to lie, folks, because it's almost like this was well planned, to the point they knew that there was no security cameras here, and the guy also had a very arduous climb in and out of the building every day, and they picked him because he was an easier target, possibly. A little bit weird, I will have to say.
Yeah, it was definitely weird, but they almost got him.
They almost got him. We don't know. Well, they might actually still get him. He's in very critical condition, from what we understand, folks. From what we've heard, he lost a lot of blood, basically bleeding out in the stairwell, and so he is in very bad shape in a hospital somewhere in Moscow right now. So we don't really know if the guy's even going to live. He might end up dying in the next several days. But this was some sort of a wild sort of an assassination attempt, and also, because the assassin is at large, we have no clue who in the world was behind this. We assume that it might be the Ukrainians, but it also could have been partisans. It could have been people who were against the Russian government. It could have been someone in his command that had something against him, an underling that took it out on him and basically fragged him. We don't really know. So we'll be waiting to find out more information on that, but surely an interesting story to say the least. Also, we were able to hear, in other odd circumstances today, that the former Russian Deputy Justice Minister, Sergei Trumpin, was found dead in a bathtub at his Moscow apartment today as well.
A bathtub? Well, man, what's the Deputy Justice Minister, a grown man, doing taking a bath in a bathtub? I mean, come on. I'm not judging anybody, by the way. If you take a bath in a bathtub, good on you, but that's a little strange.
1 second. Hold up. I gotta go get this, man. Before
You got a rubber ducky too.
Hold up, man. I gotta go get this before I even do the next thing. Let's see here. Hold up, man. I gotta go. Oh my god, this is gonna be great. Bruh, this guy was in his bathtub, man, with like a little rubber ducky and the soap all around him. He was going, splish, splash, as taking a bath. And then he hears, of like the door opening. He sees the FSB guys just standing there in the doorway. Bro, he just looks like that in the bathtub, bro. He's like, it's over.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, the rubber ducks, the bubble bath, these deputy justice ministers, they're really something else. They enjoy their luxuries, I guess you could say.
So here's what's even crazier, folks. The official explanation of this guy's cause of death is that he drowned in the bathtub.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I think the FSB does this junk on purpose. I think they actually do this on purpose. They make it unbelievable. So that way people will kind of they'll have plausible deniability that they can't really be proven they're the ones behind it. But the death will be so odd and so suspicious looking that you'll kind of just sort of know that they did it. It's kind of like in that weird middle ground.
Man, I gotta be honest with you. First off, we do have to say that I guess you could call this a wash, considering the way that this guy drowned in the middle of the bathtub. Second thing is that how the hell do you drown in a bathtub? One. And also, one last thing. Does anyone ever think that maybe this is proving a point about how stupid Russian government officials are? I mean, there's an old saying in America that someone is stupid enough that they could drown in a puddle of water. This guy drowned in a bathtub, which is basically a puddle of water. So, I mean, either way you go on this, any direction you take on this, it doesn't really look too good for the Russians. Either the FSB just off the guy, or the guy was stupid enough that he drowned in a bathtub, which I don't even know how the hell you do
Yeah.
that.
What's next? Like the reports come out in the Russian media. Oh, top Russian official dies because he breathed too much air. It's like it's like how ridiculous it is going to get at some point. I mean, remember the ones there's a whole plethora. Like I did a video like a year or two ago on this whole situation, and the list has grown way longer than even it was in that video. I could have named off like 20, 25 guys that were top corporate people inside of Russia, that were top government officials that died in the weirdest ways. Like a guy tripped and fell down a huge staircase. One guy tripped and fell out of a hospital window that doesn't even open. One guy slipped and fell on his yacht, busted his head, and somehow got a gunshot wound. It's like all these crazy deaths, like the drowning in your own bathtub. I think some guy might have drowned by tripping in a puddle of water or something. It was ridiculous, and this is another ridiculous one.
Yeah, and also one other thing, folks. This guy is not old. This was the last pictures that we had of Sergei Tropin before he died in the bathtub. So I mean, he looks like he's in his maybe I don't know early 50s. He's not that old though. It's not like he's so old and feeble that he could truly drown in a bathtub. This guy could easily get himself out of a bathtub. So the FSB probably off the guy in Moscow, and they just went with the story that he drowned in the bathtub. They're getting kind of a little bit more creative though, outside of the window falling trick. Now it's drowning in the bathtub. Next thing you know, they're gonna Final Destination someone and say that they walked into their bathroom and slipped and hit their head on the perfect corner edge of the marble countertop. That's probably the next thing they're going to go with.
Oh, even worse, forgetting this guy for a second that drowned in the bathtub, the general, they got shot by the unknown assailant who got him in the back. That facility, or not the facility, but that apartment building that he was in, allegedly, the reports are the CCTV was out when that shooting happened. So they don't even have video of the shooter because the cameras were out. So that's also a little bit suspicious. Now, granted, it could be a legit situation. Like it could be simply a malfunction and maybe they didn't turn the cameras back on or something, but I don't know. Like it seems like the cameras tend to be out quite a bit when something like that happens.
Man, I tell you, man, I'd hate to be in Russia with the fact that no security cameras ever work when you need them to. They always seem to have that little tendency of just going out. But one thing I will say though is that we did get a bunch of eyewitness testimony. Well, not eyewitness, but interviewed testimony from people who lived in that apartment building, and they had actually been saying that they had been putting in complaints for months that the cameras and a whole bunch of other stuff had not been working in that building for months. So it wasn't something that just happened spontaneously. Apparently, this guy lived in a dive somewhere in Moscow, and they weren't maintaining the premises.
Yeah, it could be possibly. And also, by the way, it's like, as an apartment building, probably going to prioritize keeping cameras online. Probably not, especially if it's a very, not very good apartment building. It could be the case.
Could be the case. And I mean, if you look around Moscow, I mean, I wouldn't expect any of these apartment buildings to be high end, like these. That don't look high end to me. That's not even a 26-story one. He must have been living in a Brezhnevka. Because Brezhnevkas are the ones that get up to about that height. Maybe he was living in one of these.
He must have been living in a Brezhkrapa.
Oh, bro, he was living in that Brezhshitka. But I mean, well, hell, these buildings aren't even here. Where the hell did they... What in the hell? Look at this. They're not here. But on the map, they're here. Oh, these are new. Okay, that's like one of the few new developments that they have in Russia. Is there any examples of a 26-story building in Moscow at all, beyond Moscow City? Is there a singular one? I can't find a single one, man. Like, I'm trying to find a building like that to show y'all an example of it. Did this guy live in, like, the outskirts?
I'm not really sure where the actual apartment was. I didn't actually geolocate it.
Damn. These are looking heinous, dude, even from up here. Let me see if I can get us close to these. Jesus. This place is overgrown.
Honestly, you kind of want it overgrown. You want this place as hidden as it can get.
Man, this is, folks, the Ukrainians in the middle of the early part of the war in Ukraine, they came out with a game called Stalker, I believe it's Heart of Chernobyl 2, if I'm not mistaken, or Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, I believe. I think their inspiration for that wasn't even the Chernobyl exclusion zone. I think it was just the suburbs of Moscow, because this looks about like Pripyat does right now, and it's been abandoned for 30 years. This is lived in. I mean, look, people are hanging out their clothes to dry out on their apartment balconies and stuff. And also, look at all that mold.
Ew, that's nasty as hell.
Man, I got to tell y'all, folks. I mean, I'm just going to be kind of straight up. I mean, this is that dream that, folks like Tucky G want all Americans to live in, because Russia is truly far better, moral, and just superior to America in every conceivable way. I mean, this really does say it in more ways
Oh,
than one. Hmm?
Also, by the way, real quick, I got to interrupt this talk about the nasty crappas in Moscow. We got to jump onto some breaking news. We have some breaking
Oh,
news happening right now about Poland, and we were just about to get to Poland on something else that has happened earlier today. But getting to Poland right now, the airspace over eastern Poland has officially been closed, and right now we're being told that fighter aircraft are apparently defending NATO's eastern front, and apparently Lublin and Rzeszów airports are closed, and we can see on the ADSB information that NATO aircraft are operating in the region, which corresponds with the usual activities, and perhaps even more than that, with protecting the airspace. Because we are seeing that there are drones right now at this very moment that Russia has launched toward the most western part of Ukraine that are apparently getting very close to the border. So not totally sure if they've crossed, but according to the NOTAM, it says unplanned military activity related to ensuring state security, which is the overall blanket statement that they always put on those NOTAMs whenever they're having to do fighter jet activities. So we'll have to wait and see if anything's actually crossed into Polish territory, but right now it's unknown.
they also have a NATO E-3 Sentry up currently over Lublin, and they also have an A330 Voyager aerial tanker of the Royal Dutch Air Force that is currently airborne in the area as well, conducting racetracks. So that definitely indicates there is at least friendly air activity right now over southeastern Poland, preparing just in case if Russian drones cross to shoot them down. So that is currently ongoing at this moment. And funnily enough, we were literally about to get into the Polish news right when that news came out. And moving us on to some news that we were able to hear earlier today, we were able to hear of another drone incident in Poland. This morning in Poland, a small drone crashed on the grounds of the 1st Air Cavalry Battalion in Licznica Wielka in the Lodz Voivodeship. This is a second such incident in recent days after a drone crashed in Przemysl on the 20th of January. Military police are investigating this incident as well and are trying to find out why. We don't really know a lot about this thing. The first one was a toy-like drone from what we were able to hear. So we do not know exactly what this one is. It might be another toy-like drone, and if it is, that might indicate that civilians are just messing around. If it isn't, then that means that the Russians are trying to gather intelligence on Polish military facilities, and one of them just got into Poland's hands a second time. So we don't really know what's going on with that. But Matthew, what are people thinking about it? What are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like the people are thinking very hard on this one. And this is a bit of a big one because they're apparently surveilling army bases inside of Poland, which is obviously sensitive information because that is information that Russia would love to know, what the force dispositions, the amount of assets at the base, they would love to know that information. So it's very critical to know exactly who's behind it. So today is the second incident in just about a week or two, which is concerning because it seems like they're ramping up surveillance, whoever's behind this, of these very critical sites. So what are your thoughts? 65% said Poland is clearly being surveilled by agents on the ground, likely inside of Poland, while 21% said Poland was likely attacked by it and they're trying to cover it up. And 6% said it seems like a civilian incident that simply had a little drone go right over a sensitive location. And I would say I don't really buy that idea about it being a civilian incident. Not everything is a civilian being dumb. That's usually sometimes a cover for more sinister activities. And we do know that in the United States, we have seen documented incidents of foreign nationals coming here to the United States and getting normal consumer level drones, like, for example, Mavics and things like that, that are available to the civilian market. And they will use those drones to then go surveil very sensitive naval sites, like, for example, the ones in New England that we recently saw. A Chinese national came over and allegedly surveilled it using a civilian drone, and then he was caught. It could be the same thing happening right now inside of Poland. It could be either Russian or Chinese agents that are flying civilian drones around to do surveillance, because those drones work just as good as military drones. They just simply have a shorter range. So all you need is a civilian on the ground to be your operator, and it has the same potential as a military drone at that point. So I'm with the 63%. I think Poland is clearly being surveilled by agents, and they're very interested in the force dispositions at these bases. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say that I'd be with a 62%. Poland is probably being surveilled by foreign agents. It's just that right now, the gendarmerie of the Polish army is generally not making it out to be the case. Maybe trying to downplay it because they've been told by the government of Poland to generally downplay the incident so that way it doesn't become a point of national outrage. So that might be the reasoning for why we're not really hearing a lot of additional detail rather than it's being investigated and looked into. But I would also have to agree with the 62%. I have a feeling it's being surveilled by agents. So with that in mind, we are going to be moving out of Poland and down into Moldova. Moldova sounds like a brand of chocolate. I don't know about y'all, but every time I say Moldova, I think of something like Dove chocolate or something like that. Don't you, Matthew?
A little bit, possibly, maybe.
Let's take a look at Moldova. See what? Oh, they don't have a lot of street view here in Moldova. Let's go down into the capital then of Chisinau and take a little look. What does Chisinau look like? Not too bad, actually. I mean, this is pretty decent, all things considered. But anyways, we were able to hear that within Moldova today, near to the border regions, we have been able to hear of another Russian drone entering Moldova. The crash drone was discovered. It's the third case since the beginning of 2026, which shows that the Russians continue to use the airspace of a neighboring country with complete impunity for drone attacks on Ukrainian territory, which is nothing new, but it is showing that the Russians are continuing to violate Moldovan airspace. Moving us on out of that, we also had to point out that there is a major drone attack going on right now in the Russian Federation. A large amount of Ukrainian drones and missiles have been launched into the country, and we're still waiting for damage reports to come out here soon of what exactly the Ukrainians have been able to hit. Moving us on from that, though, and on down and into the area of our location unknowns, we also were able to get the Russian casualty report, which was provided by none other than Miss Nisa. Oh! And one Bobcat was lost. Hey!
Hey, one Bobcat. Let's go. Look at that. A little juicy.
Would you take a look at that? We don't know what happened in the Kyiv Independence Casualty Report, folks. We're still trying to figure that one out. But in the meantime, we do have Miss Deesa's excellent record keeping and also her records and casualty report published on Twitter to work off of. According to Miss Deesa, the Russian loss report for day 1,444 is as follows. Personnel loss average drops into the 800s. UAV losses decline, but it's the 18th highest daily loss of the war. Other categories are above average, especially the double-digit APCs. And over the past 24 hours, we have been able to see that 720 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed in the past 24 hours, along with 6 main battle tanks, 11 APCs, 39 artillery systems, 1 MLRS, 2 air defense systems, 826 drones, 162 supply trucks, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. It's quite a good day, I'd have to say. It's a great day in the US of A. It's a wonderful thing to see. It's a good thing to know the Ukrainians are continuing to hold the Russians back and really making them pay dearly for any attempted advance. Our actual frontline news out of Ukraine today was actually a little bit sparse, folks, unfortunately. I generally try and get as much combat footage as we can, and today I was really only able to get 3 clips, most if not all of them coming from the area between Liman and down to Konstantinivka. We didn't get any footage out of the Kupiansk front, the Pokrovsk front, the Huilopol front, or really anywhere else for that matter. It was basically just Konstantinivka and the Sabotage forest. Moving us on into the Sabotage forest, we did get to see that some drone operators of the Signum unit were conducting anti-drone interceptions, and apparently with a great deal of success. Bada boom, boy! And another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Maybe another one. Oh, should I dare insist? Maybe, perhaps another. Well, that's all of them. But come back for more tomorrow. Moving on from that clip and further on down and into the area of Bakhmut, we also got to see a Russian soldier doing a heroic act to save his truck. He said, "No, not my truck, Bliad," and he fell off the truck, and the drone accidentally got him instead of the truck. Well, he did save the truck, but I don't think he saved himself. That we can generally be
Big
guaranteed.
win for the team, Bliad. Look at him. He's a team player. That man looks like that man of Ren and Stimpy when he woke up.
Man, honestly, man, this guy looks like a ghoul from Scooby-Doo. He looks like he's about to go, Kine! But, you know, I
man,
think...
if only it wasn't for those meddling kids.
If
oh,
only...
man, I hope the Scooby-Doo villain wasn't on an island.
Like, Zoink Scoob, he's in the files! Rag!
Damn it, if it wasn't for you damn kids.
If it wasn't for you meddling citizens. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see the Russian turtle tanks getting hit by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Konstantinivka front. Oh, that's an unmanned ground vehicle. Oh, what is this, Russian infantry? Well, Who would have ever been more fortunate? Oh, blять, he says as he runs around the burned-out desert cross. For the trees, blять. And we got to see this one. Oh no, it's another drum, blять. My life is so tough, blять. Oh, that one hit a limb. This Russian hears in the wide open. He's like, suka, blять. Pop, pop, pop. That didn't work. This one's near a tree. Let me run near the tree for shelter. Oh, pop a tree. Bam. And then you got it. And then they hit this outpost here. Whabam. And then they also hit this basement.
Basement?
Basement dwellers beware.
Hey.
Hey, we were once basement dwellers. All the way back in the
We were once basement dwellers, and then we moved into the sky. We're now stratos dwellers, yeah?
Yes. Let's see. What was that Star Trek episode? It's the mining ore that they're mining. It's making them crazy. Go on, dig! Like in a yell them at gunpoint, made them start digging.
Man, I'll tell you what. They were oppressing the troglodytes. I think that was the name of the group on the ground that they was oppressing down. They're having them dig up the ore out of the caves.
What type of name was that? The troglodytes. Like, I don't even understand what the hell that was supposed to be. But anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on out of the front, as that was all of our footage for today. And we're now going to be moving on into Kyiv to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And so, without further ado, folks, if it loads, here is the speech. Pooch!
Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Перше. Повітряні сили Збройних сил. Будуть там кадрові зміни наразі в частині областей, в підрозділах, те, що стосується захисту від російських шахедів. Компонент малої ППО саме протидії ударним дронам повинен працювати значно сильніше і не допускати тих проблем, які зараз є. На частині напрямків рубежі захисту побудовані краще, на частині напрямків треба ще попрацювати і значно попрацювати. Важливо, що міністр оборони України займається цією тематикою. Командувач повітряних сил отримав додаткові доручення. І є достатньо сил всередині наших сил оборони та безпеки України, достатньо досвіду, який можна і треба масштабувати. Все те, що працює реально на тому чи іншому напрямку, на тому чи іншому рівні, повинно застосовуватись всюди, де результатів поки що менше. І кожен день має значення. Всі рішення повинні впроваджуватись максимально оперативно. Такий же підхід в енергетиці. Немає тижнів чи місяців на ремонти та постачання обладнання, і багато речей активно прискорюються. Я хочу подякувати усім ремонтним бригадам. Я хочу подякувати кожному працівнику тих комунальних служб, які реально допомагають. І також хочу подякувати ДСНС України та всім енергокомпаніям. Багато дійсно героїчної роботи. Дякую обласній та місцевій владам, тим, які справді ефективні. Часто так буває, що першочергові звіти про ремонти на кілька тижнів виявляються неточними і можна прискорити роботу. На кожному селекторі саме це значна частина обговорень, терміни, прискорення, пошук та постачання додаткового обладнання. Всі в Україні готові допомагати. І реально всі допомагають Києву. Це багато громад, дуже багато. Державні компанії, все направляють зараз свій ресурс. Всі. Ситуація в столиці дуже складна досі. Більш ніж 1100 будинків без опалення. Людям з таких будинків має бути надано більше допомоги. І також загалом важливо максимально цифровізувати все, що стосується проблем, які є, наявних проблем, наявних потреб людей. Того, чим і як допомагають людям. Чим більше буде такої цифровізації, тим менше часу буде витрачатися ще й на перевірку звітів. Ще кілька речей. На завтра я призначив нараду з нашою делегацією. Хлопці повертаються в Україну. Сьогодні, пізно ввечері, завтра будуть доповіді по тих чутливих аспектах перемовин в Абу-Дабі, про які не можна говорити телефоном. Ми готуємось до наступних зустрічей тристоронніх. Завтра ж ми будемо говорити з європейськими партнерами. І також зараз в Америці працює наша парламентська дипломатія, голова парламенту Руслан Стефанчук. Ми з ним проговорювали перед поїздкою, що потрібно найбільше. Це стосується підтримки нашої держави, наших людей. І також перемовин. Вже були зустрічі Руслана зі спікером Джонсоном, з конгресменами та з багатьма нашими друзями України в Америці. Був український молитовний сніданок. Усім я хочу подякувати за підтримку. Дякую, Руслане, за продуктивну парламентську дипломатію. Всі сили нашої держави, всі, зараз мають бути направлені на одне – підтримку України, підтримку українців, підтримку нашого захисту, нашої стійкості, нашої незалежності. Підтримка для України – це наближення умов, коли війна для Росії втратить сенс. Обов'язково ми вистоїмо. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And that's the end of the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, here on this day of 1444 of the news from around the world. And it's time for us folks to move on into our second segment of the stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, it's going to be an incredibly wonderful and incredible time. We'll be able to talk about anything and everything except for religion, politics, climate change, or whether the A-10's relevant in modern warfare or not. And I do have to say, folks, that it's going to be one hell of a time. That I can tell you. I can promise you that. I can tell you that. I can guarantee you that with a great deal of certainty. But before we get on into that, though, there's one last piece of news that I did not cover yet that is in Moscow that I forgot to cover before we got to the speech from Zelenskyy, because we covered the other two guys dying in the bathtub and getting shot, and so I completely forgot that the Russian economy is dying today as well, and it has plummeted quite significantly. Oil and gas revenues have dropped another whopping 50% in profits. That's not good, and that generally means that the Russian economy is very close to collapsing, maybe even imploding. And a lot of people are wondering, well, how much longer can they last? Can they last a long time like this, or is it basically over for them? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so Russia is bleeding out in many different ways, including their oil and gas revenue. It's been dropping consistently for the past year or 2 years, and now it had a huge drop in January. This last month has been brutal on the Russian oil and gas industry, which is attributed mainly to the seizures of tankers that we've been seeing happening, and also all the different, let me get rid of this bot real quick. But also all the different strikes on oil facilities inside of Russia. So how can Russia withstand these losses? Because right now they're pulling a bit of a miracle out of a hat. Somehow they're still functioning, even with 50% drops in revenue. And oil and gas is their main money maker. That's how they make their GDP. So how can they withstand it? 46% said they simply can't withstand it much longer. It's a house of cards. It's about to crumble. 32% said with foreign financial support, they will pull through. And 15% said it's really not that bad, and Russia still has some margin left. So I don't know. Like they got to have a lot of money for the military. That's pretty much where most of their budget's being routed to right now, is the military forces and buying things and all types of deals like that. So most of the money heading to the military. The people that are getting hurt by this is not the Russian government. It's not the war in Ukraine. It's the people of Russia that are paying the price for this tremendously. So it's not really a question of whether Russia can withstand the losses. It's a question of whether or not the Russian civilians, the average everyday Joe Blows, can actually withstand this. That's the real question. So I'm going to say that they might be able to hold through with foreign financial support to keep their basic civil systems running in the country. But I don't know how much that's going to hold up, because China is probably subsidizing a hell of a lot of Russia's economy at this point. So I've heard speculation in the street that maybe Russia's going to form a gang called the Broke Boys Gang. I think they're part of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, they come out, man, and they're dressed up in them rags, but they ain't Versace rags. like they're just legit rags.
Broke Boys Gang represent Privyet.
Man, they come out and they go, "Oh wow, is that new modern like grunge urban style?" No, we're literally just dirt ass poor. This is the best we got.
Man.
Man, it's like, damn, they keeping it real. But I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would have to be with the 46%. They cannot last much longer. They might be able to last about another year, maybe just a little bit over that. But generally, the Russian economy has basically run its course, and it really can't keep going much longer. So in my honest opinion, I'd be with the 46%. I don't think they'll be able to hang in here much longer. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And it is time for us folks to move on and right into the questions. Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping back into our super chat questions proper, it's time to give shout outs to all of our super chatters, our live chatters, and Morse code decoders. Jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Jason, disciple of Jesus, who puts in a 50. And thank you very much, Jason, for that support. He said, I wish this could be more today. Y'all are awesome. And thank you, Jason. He said, had me dying laughing with the goo goo gaga Lebanon's terrorist states little quote.
Well, I think so true support, Jason. I thank you for really appreciating our sense of humor around here, because like sometimes people get me a little bit aggravated with how obvious things have been for years, and then they act like it's a new revelation, like that was yesterday. I'm glad that you got a kick out of that, though, because I try and make it a little bit comedic, although I also try and get my frustration through at the same time to make it clear that while we can crack a joke on it, it also is pretty annoying that we even have to talk about it. But still, humongous thanks to you so much once again, and I hope that has addressed it incredibly well, Jason, and I thank you massively for being a part of this Lee Spring Army, and also supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running so we can cover this news day in and day out. Like right now, we have currently 12,000 people here nearly, and 113,000 people have watched this stream in 2 hours. That's a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot of them, I'd have to say. And I gotta thank you for being one of those people, and being one of the few that supports the channel, because the few that support this channel help to make the channel free and watchable for millions of people a month, and help us to be able to do our jobs. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next super chat here, this one's going to go to none other than Mark Ead, who throws in his second support of the night. And thank you very much, good sir Mark, for throwing in a combined total of a $100 support. And we appreciate that, all the way from New Zealand. He said, Costco chicken and filter fun. Grab one from the chat, gentlemen. LSA, New Zealand, and the South.
Hey, and a big shout out to Mark Ead once again. A huge shout out to New Zealand in the South. A great country. A wonderful country, Kathleen. And I gotta say that it's a wonderful thing to know that folks like you, Mark Ead, are a part of the Lee Spring Army and are from the South Island of New Zealand.
Wait a minute. You know something I just thought about? Have you ever thought about the name New Zealand? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, where's the old Zealand?
No, I'm a little bit concerned here. Could it be that this is telling prophecy here? Could it be that that's the case? Because if this is New Zealand, could this be where the Russians are going to flee after they lose the war to Zealand?
Oh my God! Wait a minute.
New Zealand? Get it? New Zealand?
I get it. I get it.
It's the media. It's the media. They're trying to convince you. They're trying to put you down. It's the media.
Hold up. I know what you're trying to do. Let me channel their spirit. The liberal media, they're lying here. They're lying here. They don't want you to know this, but the Russians, they're gonna flee down to New Zealand. New Zealand, they got the Illuminati. They're in New Zealand. But beyond that,
I'm sure the Russians will love New Zealand. By the way, I mean they would love to flee somewhere. I mean New Zealand's a nice place. Mark Ead knows it's a nice joint down there in New Zealand. The Russians might want to go there. You never know. I have a feeling though New Zealand might not want them.
I have a feeling they might not want them. But let's take a little look right here at this lake. Pukaki, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Holy moly.
Oh, wow, look at that lake. That's nice. That's a nice lake.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful right there. You know, folks, we actually tried to make it to a lake today. Matthew, do you think that would be an OPSEC issue if I told them?
No, I wouldn't say so. Yeah. We don't make it a regular schedule, so it's safe to say.
Yeah, it's not a part of our routine surveillance patterns or anything like that. So let me bring y'all here. Let me bring y'all here to this place. So today, folks, we went on to the Bell Canyon Trailhead, or Bell Canyon Preservation Trailhead. It didn't look like this. It's winter. But let me see here if I can show y'all a picture of the trail where we were at and on it. Man, it's so beautiful out here. All the pictures are really something. But let me see if let's see here. Oh, right here. Maybe this is kind of close to where we were. Yeah, this was just about where this is exactly where we were, right here. This was where we were at today. We wandered up this hill. This looks very different back in the day, as a matter of fact. That wasn't there. Wow, they've really changed this place up, Matthew, since 2017. I mean, holy moly, look at that. That used to be...
They've added a lot of houses.
Man, that's where the parking lot was, right there.
Interesting. So they've really added a lot to it. They gave us a lot more to work with.
Yeah, that was like some sort of like a business or something like that. But anyways, we went up here today. Our plan was to make it down here to this lake. We didn't get to make it to it. We only made it halfway, and then we had to turn around because it was already like it was like 4:30 or so. So sadly we didn't get to make it to the lake. But if we had, this is the view that we would have had right here. Look at that. It's beautiful here.
Oh, that's a nice view.
Oh, buddy, that is a real nice view. Look at this, folks. Look at this. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful? This is beautiful. Look at the little ducks. They got ducks in couples because, you know, they're like that. They're cool like that. They're chill like that. It's just such a cool looking place. And I wish we had been able to make it to this lake today. I bet it would have been really cool and it would have made for some really good pictures. But sadly, we didn't get to make it to the lake. So we just had to settle with making it mostly down the trail and then turning around and going back. It was still sick, I do have to say. And, you know, so that was something that we did today. I mean, that was also equally breathtaking, a lot like New Zealand. And I got to tell y'all, folks, every day I'm out here in Salt Lake City, I count my lucky stars. Now, I do make fun of Salt Lake City every once in a while, like the inversions and stuff like that here and there, but I just do that because being critical of stuff and kind of joking about its flaws, for some reason, it's a comedy special of mine. But outside of that, though, I bless my lucky stars for every day I'm here in Salt Lake City, because I will have to say it's about 8 or 9 steps above Alabama in terms of quality of life. There's a lot to do, a lot to see. There's always something to do in our free time, and it's also really pretty around here, too, which is a huge plus. So I gotta say, we're really happy to be out here. That's one thing I can tell you. But still, a humongous thanks to you so much once again, Marquis, from New Zealand, the island of the South, because we also are appreciators of natural beauty, much like the natural beauty that you live in. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Nick said, what's it like having so many Mormons? LOL. You know, it's something else. Like when we were up on that trail today, we were coming back down towards the parking lot, because right around here, this is the top of this hill. It's like about 203 or some feet tall, but we made it to the top of this hill and we were coming back towards the parking lot. And when we did, we took a stop to take a look around, and behind us, these two guys dressed up in, like, you know, the usual kit, they came up and then they looked down and said, "Look, it's the promised land. Tell Brigham Young." And we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. Look, they found it. They found it again. Yeah, remember?
No, I don't remember that.
Man, I'm kidding. It's like a joke on the Immigration Canyon, you know, how they founded Salt Lake City and all that stuff, you know? Like,
oh, I'm not too into that Mormon comedy. I don't get it.
Oh, well, it was just, you know, it was just saying that, you know, they found it again, you know, like they came over the hill, they saw the Salt Lake and everything.
Oh, they
and then
found it.
Yeah, I get it. Like, it's like how they found it the first time, you know, when they founded Salt Lake City. You know, and they were like, look, the promised land, tell Brigham Young. And I was doing like the same thing for this hill, which is far smaller, you know, and we were on top of it and they came over it as well. You know, these people weren't even there, folks.
I've never even heard of a guy named Brigham in real life.
I never even heard anyone call it that either. I think that was a very late 1800s sort of a thing, you know? But anyways, beyond that, though, I hope that some people did get the joke a little bit. I think some people did. I think some people got a laugh. But still, I do thank you massively for the support. And helping this channel keep running. I'll be honest with you, though, Mormons get a really bad rap. They're actually fairly nice people. I haven't hardly even run into many of them out here. Most of them, I believe, are only Mormons on paper, because I haven't run into anyone where it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely a Mormon. Like, you can tell them apart from everyone else. Basically, everyone's just a normal person, like a normal American out here. Very nice people. And so I would say there's really no gripe I have. Generally, if this is what it's like living around Mormon folks, I'd say that the Mormons are probably some of the nicest people that we've had the opportunity of living around. So I'd actually give them some pretty decent little brownie points right there. Not a bad group to live around. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Also, by the way, Matthew, have you seen the Bell Canyon Upper Falls further on up the mountain? Would you like to?
Sure, quickly.
That's what it looks like. Look at it.
Oh, that is nice. I like that. I like waterfalls.
And then they got this lake up here. You can make it to this lake further on up here. It's this one. And this one's also a really cool picture spot as well. This looks like it's from Red Dead Redemption. I mean, look at that right there.
That does look cool, I will admit. I'd like to see that.
Oh, that'd be sick. This is several thousand feet up, by the way. This is, I think, only like 2,500 feet from the summit. So we'd have to make it about a vertical mile upwards to be able to get to that thing. So, you know, I mean, it'll be hard work to get up there, but the view is worth it. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it well. Huge thanks to you once again for support, Marquis, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $30 support from none other than Marion Deemert, another longtime channel legend. And thank you, Marion, all the way for that $30 support.
Oh! And
they said, I will still support you guys from Germany, and this sucks.
And I thank you for the support all the way from Germany. Germany's a really cool country. We like Germany. Germany's neat. And I gotta thank you so much for helping this channel to keep it running. And I do have to agree, something sucks. But remember, folks, there's nothing better than being an American. For our American viewers, if you're from another country, there's nothing better than being your own countryman in your own country, like being British or German or French. There's a good reason to be proud of the country, and it's not because of the people in charge of the government, no matter who they are, whether you like them or not. It's really about the fact that you have an amazing group of people to call your fellow countrymen and patriots, and that's what really is the shining example of what being an American is. Because I will say that we do complain a lot about the current administration's foreign policy on this channel, and I do think that it's doing America a great detriment, but at the same time, I still am proud to be an American. It's just that I think that our foreign policy is going through a little bit of a low point at the moment. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Grand Moff Clubby. And thank you very much, Grand Moff, for that $20 support. They said, here is another contribution for the Imperial Remnant. Let's see here. They said the White House needs to stop falling for these Iran negotiations, and we need to cut the crap and stop Iran before it's too late. And LTLSA, and long live the Empire.
And thank you so much for the support. Long live the Republic. And I gotta say that outside of that, I would generally agree with you. After the next weekend comes around, if we're still doing this after the next upcoming weekend, then I'm going to be heavily criticizing this. I think this is ridiculous at the moment, because whether we're talking with them or not, the Iranians aren't going to strike us anytime soon. They're trying to go around and get international support. So the ball, as far as time, is already in our court. We basically are dictating the ebb and flow of actions in the Middle East. So I would have to say that I don't even know why we're talking to him right now, but if they want to talk to him while we're still buying ourselves some time to get forces in the region, I suppose that's fine, but if it goes on any longer than that, it's an absolute joke. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running, we wouldn't make this thing a reality. So humongous thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Yenya Tolls. And thank you very much, Yenya Tolls, for that $20 support. They said, when are they going to start arresting those people that have done things that are very questionable?
Oh, well, I mean, that could be any time, that could be any time, I'm sure they'll get around to enacting justice on someone somewhere, Oh, buddy. Oh, the truth is that they're not. I hate to say it, but probably no one's ever going to stand justice for what you're particularly talking about. Because it's too complicated to get into, but it makes me about as aggravated as you are probably aggravated about right now. But we try and keep that under wraps, because generally it doesn't really fall within the purview of what we talk about here on the show, but we don't like that at all either. So I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that addresses that the best we can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to none other than, guess who? It's going to be My Trucking Travels, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, good sir, My Trucking Travels, for that support. He said, LSA and love from the overnight truckers, and continue to be excellent to each other.
And thank you so much for the support, Truck and Chef. And we will try to be as good as we have been. And I got to thank you so much for the support from all of the truckers, the midnight truckers here in the United States that keep our national infrastructure running. If it wasn't for amazing folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And we're massively appreciative and gratefully thankful for folks like you, not only for your support to the channel, but the fact that you help us to be able to have goods in the stores to be able to buy tomorrow. Or generally goods from Amazon, whichever way you look at it. But still, a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on and into the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Chris Feilbach. And thank you very much, Chris, for that 20 as well. We do appreciate it. He said, I feel that if I had the option of taking the stairs in a 25-story Russian building versus the elevator, I'd probably trust the stairs more. Well, the catch is, Chris, you actually can't trust either one of them because the stairs can be very dangerous in Russia too. In fact, I can name off two individuals that died very terrible deaths falling downstairs, and very high stairs. In fact, I didn't even know they had like 3 or 4 story staircases, but apparently in Russia that's a thing, or at least that's what they said. They might be lying about the staircase being that high, but Enforcer, what say you?
Interesting here. I'm just reading here. Interesting. So some Russian buildings that height sometimes just don't have elevators. I feel like that's not really up to code. Like I feel like in America that wouldn't really reach code because of the I believe it's the Americans with Disabilities Act would make that illegal. But in Russia it's kind of just to each their own. You know, there's no law. Like you can have an elevator, but you also don't have to have an elevator. So I'd assume most of them and the ones that have elevators also aren't working. So you know, I'd honestly trust the stairs a little bit more myself now knowing that. But I do thank you massively for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Yeah, and this one goes to Yenya Tolls once again, who puts in a 20. And they said, while they're talking about, we're creating another group of extremism of American hatred in the process, and we did entice the promise of help to a large population and then pulled the rug out with these talks.
That's largely what I would agree with. That's what we've said before. Isn't it kind of a little bit crazy, folks, that at this point the Iranians can quite literally negotiate their way out of what they did to 30,000 people? Someone even said that it might have been 90,000, but I haven't really gotten enough proof to even confirm that number, and I think that's getting on up into astronomically high figures. But out of that, I would have to say that it's really crazy to think that we were sitting there watching 30,000 people get killed earlier this year. It wasn't just it wasn't but a few weeks ago. And now the U.S. government acts like that never even happened, and that's not even a part of the equation with talking to Iran. It's just simply about the nuclear weaponry, which I do have to remind you all, the president claimed up and down that all of the nuclear facilities were completely destroyed and the Iranian nuclear program has ceased to exist like no other. There's never been anything like it. If you don't believe me, go look at the tweets, go back and look at the maps that came around during that time. You'll be able to see that clear as day. As a matter of fact, I might actually do that right now. Let me go see if I can get that because we have the live streams. I mean, I can literally pull up the receipts on air. Because some people always like to say that we're just lying about stuff because they live in the land of cope. To where if their political figure that they worship does something they don't like, no matter who it is, they just deny that it ever happened. So let me go see if I can go get that for y'all. It's kind of crazy going back all the way to like October, man. I'm looking at this right now. Look at this. Way back in October, we were talking about Venezuela. That's how long that took to happen until January 3rd. Let me see here. The Venezuela. Let's see. Damn, it was way back in September. Good God, that was an insanely long time ago. Let's see here. Holy moly. You know, it really is something else, folks, when you think about how long it took for us to strike Venezuela. Our first stream that we made on that was on the 31st of August. When we actually went in and grabbed Maduro, that was the 3rd of January. Let's see, that would have been...
That's a long time.
That was 4 months and a couple of days from the first threats we made against Venezuela to when we finally grabbed Maduro. So that's why I'm kind of saying, folks, this whole Iran thing might be going on for a really long time. Because if that took 4 months to happen, this could take about as long as well. But let me see here.
Although this is gonna be a lot more crude though. Like the 4 months, all preparations for a very complex operation to exfiltrate Maduro, which takes longer to plan. Crude airstrikes. That's a lot less complicated, at least if it goes the way I think it's going to go. That's a lot less complicated than trying to pull out a guy from his palace.
That is true. I'm trying to see here really quickly. Let's see. Iran attacks Israel. That would have been the opening of the 12-day war, I believe. Where in the world was the one where the U.S. attacked? It was Operation Midnight Hammer. It would be after that. Did we pass that already, or did we not? Okay, so there we go. Iran attacks U.S. forces in the Middle East. That would have been the next days after. So it probably would have been that map. So we'll go and click view on YouTube. And we'll close that down. Actually, I shouldn't have closed that down because that was actually an important panel on the side page. So let me click more. And then let me go down here to that map. We'll click on that map. And then we have this map. So if we go over here to Washington, if I'm working off of this correctly. Let's see, meeting with National Security Council. Possible pre-notice. U.S. warrant. Let's see. Where in the world? So, it appears that one of those statements, let me see here. Maybe this was a statement. U.S. strikes delayed Iran's nuclear program only by a few months. This was around the time that the president made those statements. And I know that we put it out here because there was a huge debate about whether or not they were completely destroyed or not. And it appears that these initial reports were actually correct, although the president absolutely hated them when they came out. And I'm trying to see where in the hell I can even find that. I'm not gonna spend 30 minutes looking for it though, because we do have a lot more questions to get to. But generally, I don't even know why in the world we would overlook that, because for the U.S. to generally promise through words that we were going to come to their aid and help them, and we basically have completely forgotten about them, to the point that even Reza Pahlavi said that we threw all those people under a bus, and everyone else said that we threw them under a bus. That doesn't really look good for the United States and following through on our words. So I do thank you actually for the support and help this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I want to bring y'all's attention to something. Always be careful when you're on Twitter, because there are, pitfalls and things like that. Like, for example, the tagging feature specifically, you want to be careful about. Enforcer, go and show Exhibit A that I've reposted at the very top of our Twitter page. Just click on it and just look at it for a minute and tell me if you notice anything wrong.
Let's see here.
Show it on the screen while you're looking at it too, by the way. You see anything wrong with this tweet right here? Just by glancing at it. Don't interact with it at all. Just tell me if you notice anything wrong off the bat.
Not necessarily, no.
So hover over the tag. That does not appear to be the Department of War right there. That appears to be some type of Russian or somebody there. That is the wrong tag. As you can see here, they've made a little bit of an error. It looks like they've tagged an individual here. Let me go check. Who lives in Uzbekistan, of all places. So interesting. That's a little bit of a blunder there, I would say.
What in the world?
Yeah, make sure you don't scroll through here. I don't know what's on this page all the way.
Bro, this account has not been active since 2016, though.
Man, they've got a very valuable username or tag, by the way. Like that, if that account was still active, I bet they could sell that for some money if Twitter would allow it.
Oh man, but he forgot that Mr. Low Cortisol here didn't check the tag, so they just put that out. You would think someone would have checked that, you feel like someone would, for someone to always talk about increasing lethality. How the hell are you supposed to be increasing lethality when you can't even check the damn tags you're putting in the tweets? Like, that kind of seems to be one of the more basic things you could do, rather than increasing lethality, just making sure you get the damn tags right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of an innocent mistake. Like some staff or somebody, it wasn't, I don't think it was him writing the tweet. It could have been, but it was probably like an assistant or something writing it, and they put the wrong thing in there. But the problem is, though, now they've tagged somebody's account, which appears to be inactive, but they've put the wrong account in the tweet, which is not a big deal, but still, it's just a little bit of an oversight.
Man, I mean, it's kind of like an oversight, like that thing that that someone else tweeted out today that was deleted. If you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those oversights, I'm sure. But anyways, with that, we are on. Oh, wait a minute, what was going on here? We've got a German Air Force aircraft squawking some sort of an emergency right now over Poland.
Oh, what's the air? Oh, it doesn't even say what aircraft type or anything it is.
No,
that's interesting. It was not on. This transponder was never on, apparently. So they don't even have the information. So it had to turn its transponder on when it started squawking the emergency code. That's fascinating.
Yeah, we don't know what this is at all, folks, unfortunately. It appears to be a German Air Force aircraft, which is descending at about 2,700 feet a minute. Right now it's at 7,900 feet. And we have no clue what it's doing. But it did squawk a 7,700, which is an emergency. So that is quite interesting. We don't really know what's going on right there. But I mean, hell, we just caught that on air, folks. I mean, that literally was just a quick glance at flight radar, and we apparently have a German Air Force aircraft in distress at the moment over Poland. So we'll hopefully figure out some information on that if we can. But just once again to confirm for everyone, we have an unidentified German aircraft over northern German airspace, northern Polish airspace, near to the port of Danzig, or Gdansk, if you pronounce it in the modern form, that is currently rapidly descending at 2,800 feet per minute, squawking at 7,700. Beyond that, we really don't know much more else. We can tell that it is rapidly slowing, so it appears that it might be going in for an approach at Elbląg Airport or some sort of a military airbase nearby to this area, which may be indicating that this is actually a significant emergency to where the aircraft cannot even fly back to Germany and it has to just land wherever readily available. So let's take a look at the airports around that area and see if we can get an idea of where it'll be heading. Oh, let's see here. Huh? Wait, any airfields here? No? Well, where's it going? Oh, right here. It must be landing at this airfield, and it's also blurred out, which would give us an idea that that's a Polish military airfield. So that aircraft has slowed down significantly. This color here on the flight path actually shows you all the speed, and the more lighter and brighter the color gets, the slower it's heading. So it was going at a pretty decent clip when its transponder first turned on, but it now appears to be rapidly slowing to prepare for an approach at this airfield right here. And we might actually be able to watch the thing conduct its maneuver to land at that airfield while we watch it. So we're going to keep this thing on air while we continue to get more questions. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving into our next super chat here, we have a $25 support from none other than
Oh, dang.
excuse me, goodness. That was one of those moments when you like something goes down the wrong windpipe and you're sitting there trying to debate, is this the end or am I going to make it? Thankfully, I'm going to make it. But this one goes to Stefani, who puts in a $25 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support as well. He said, live in Goodyear, Arizona, 9 meters from Luke Air Force Base and 30 meters from the U.S.'s second largest nuclear plant at Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station. And I've definitely heard the jet engines at Luke fire up for more trainings. And love y'all and keep it up.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And that is really cool to hear that you're near to the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. That's actually incredibly interesting to hear. And I gotta thank you so much for your support and sharing that interesting information with us. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to know such interesting stuff about Arizona. And that is interesting to hear that there's more increased flights happening around that area, which is probably showing that something's going on somewhere in the world somewhere, maybe in the Middle East. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Pleasure Burn. And thank you very much, Pleasure Burn, for that 20. They said, if life gives you lemons, make lemon-scented bubbles and chase them.
I mean, you could. You definitely could. And I do thank you massively for that support. And I thank you for helping everyone to have lemon-scented bubbles. So that way they can chase them around. Maybe that'd be fun to do. Maybe one day we'll need to try that. But a humongous thanks to you
Since when in life do you get lemons? Like, I've never understood that phrase right there. Like, that obviously the phrase means if life gives you trouble, then make, something good out of it. But it's like, wouldn't that more like, realistic, like analogy be something like, if life gives you dog doo-doo, then make, what like a doo-doo soup out of it? Like, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, what are we doing? I mean, life doesn't usually hand out like lemons or fruit when it goes wrong. It usually hands out like dog doo-doo or something. So I don't think we're making any type of beverages out of that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I hope that does address that the best we possibly.
There's nothing to address. There's nothing to address.
I'm just trying to get us on into the next one, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of feeling a little peaked over here. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Two Vikings, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Two Vikings, for that support. He said, how fast do you think the war in Ukraine would have ended if the U.S. just called Putin's bluff at the beginning and put troops on the ground in Ukraine? And I highly doubt Russia would ever risk starting an actual war with the United States.
That generally would have ended it right there, I believe. That's what I'm thinking. I think that it was the fact that the existing U.S. administration at the time didn't really want to get involved in anything all too heavily, and also it was just coming off of the defeat in Afghanistan, at least in the public mind. They didn't really want to do anything that might be viewed as lining us up for another possible defeat. So for that reason, that's why we didn't do that. But I feel like if we had, this war would have never started, because if the Russians had marched across the Ukrainian border, they would have immediately been fighting the U.S. Army, which then would have created a possible nuclear conflict out of the situation, and we could have forced them to the negotiating table then, instead of being 4 years later in this war right now. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it appears, folks, that we were correct. This aircraft, this German Air Force aircraft, is actually attempting to land at this airfield right over here at the moment. It's actually going in for an approach, and it is now going on its final to the runway at that airbase. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Pleasure Burn once again. And thank you very much, good sir, for the second support of the night. And he said the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. And that is true, by the way. That is true. Speaking of subduing the enemy without fighting, we did learn of a new Chinese capability today. They have themselves a brand new microwave weapon that can affect low orbit satellites that are used for everything from surveillance to communications. Apparently, they have that weapon, and they can simply aim it into the orbit and apparently interfere or destroy satellites with it. So that is fascinating. Also, by the way, I've gotten a little bit more information about the alleged discombobulator that the United States keeps talking about. Some people are suspecting that the discombobulator is an entirely different weapon than the sonic weapon that we've been hearing rumors about. Some people speculate that the discombobulator is actually a satellite-based weapon that fires a microwave energy beam at a directed target on the ground. And then the sonic weapon is something completely separate. So a sonic weapon would naturally not knock out your electronic capabilities. It wouldn't have that type of abilities to it. But a satellite, it might have an ability like that. So that's what some people are saying. And the Chinese are basically showing their own version of that from the ground. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that's quite interesting. I mean, that might be the case. Who's to say? But with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Truckin' Chef. And thank you very much, Truckin' Chef, for the second support of the night. He said, look at this place. Mini Glacier Hotel in Glacier National Park. That was the best chef job I had and the best view I've ever seen. But anyways, take one from the chat and enjoy a Costco chicken and LSA.
And we will make sure to take a look at the Glacier Hotel. Glacier Hotel. Let's see here. Glacier Hotel. Let's take a look. Let's take a look, Andy. Glacier Hotel? Oh my goodness, there's a lot of Glacier Hotels.
Oh!
I'm going to assume it's the most expensive one of them all. Is it?
Le Chateau.
What's the name of this place again, Matthew? What's the official name of it?
Mini Glacier Hotel.
Let's see. Let me type that in instead. Let's see the mini Glacier Hotel. Let's see here. Let's see here. Where is it? Oh, this one right here. This one right here. Oh, it's in northern Montana. Let's take a little look. Oh, I like the style. It's like a Swiss chateau style. I like that. That looks good. That looks good. I like the mountains around here too. Oh, look at the hotel rooms. Man, classic.
Oh wow.
I like
they got that boarding on the wall.
I mean, holy moly, that's a nice place right here. I mean, look at that. I mean, really, look at that. I mean, that's like the Wilderness Lodge in here, like at Disney World.
Yeah, it really is. It's just like it, like the Walt Disney Wilderness Lodge.
Man, what if they got their inspiration for that place from here?
It might be, actually. But this has absolutely nothing to do with the Sahara.
Well, no, the Wilderness Lodge didn't either. That was like another one. Like, that was another hotel. A totally different one, man. That was,
man, out back at the Wilderness Lodge, they had the Sahara thing. Remember, they had the giraffes and stuff coming out to the back window?
No, no, they didn't. No, man, the Wilderness Lodge is right here, man. They had a water park out there.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, that's like some other one of the Animal Kingdom. Like, I can show you that one.
No, man, it's right there. It was literally right there.
Right there. Right where?
Yeah, zoom back in. Zoom back into that joint and look at it. Like, zoom in. Zoom in. See that little spot right there on the right?
This?
That little building with a gray roof.
The 20 of them?
Yeah, isn't that where they had the giraffes coming up to the building with the gray, with the like maroon looking roof?
No, that's not. This isn't it at all. Like, this is just this is nothing really. I mean, like, let me take you to Animal Kingdom, old boy. Let me take you here and show you that hotel. Yes, I think we are going amiss here. Where the hell is that hotel? Where is that hotel?
It was back there where I said it was.
No, it wasn't. I can tell you that right now. Let's see.
I think you're getting down with the sickness.
Honestly, here it is. This is the one you were talking about. With like the giraffes. Yeah, it's at the Animal Kingdom. You're gonna sit there and call me crazy. You're gonna gaslight me because I'm not feeling well. I know my Disney hotels. I know my consumerism. I consume like a good little consumer. I know what I'm talking about here. But beyond that though, This is that hotel. The Wilderness Lodge, though. Let's go take a look at it so that we can try and compare it to that mini glacier hotel. So let's look at the inside of this one. I mean, I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, this feels like it might actually be kind of like a cheapish knockoff of that.
Yeah, I think it might be actually. Now that you mentioned it.
I'm not gonna lie, I never really realized this, folks, but the Wilderness Lodge kind of is like a cheap knockoff of that hotel up there in Montana. I mean, like, it doesn't have, like, the same sort of, like, a feel to it. It feels very I don't know what it is, folks, but when you really look at Disney, everything about it is really forced. Like, a lot of, especially the modern properties that they build, like, they always feel like they're trying way too hard to encapsulate something instead of it feeling natural. Like, it's like, look, it's Wilderness Lodge because it's made of logs. You know, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to look like Lincoln Logs for us to get that, you know?
The only thing that Disney's encapsulating these days is your wallet and your checkbook. That's what they're encapsulating. They're trying their damnedest to encapsulate that and just levitate it like it's a magician trick or something like that and levitate it right into the other bank account.
It's time to consume! And lots of consuming!
Man, that mouse is separating more people from their wallets than, governments and taxes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man. Oh, boy, it's time to go to the Grand Floridian and go sleep in some kind of mid-looking hotel room for like 600 or 700 a night. Like, look at that. That looks like Granny's house for 700 bucks a night. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it, folks. Like, they got the old, what is this? A Cadillac? Yeah, they got an old
Rolls, isn't it?
Oh no,
that's a Cadillac.
That's a Caddy right here. They used to build them right, back in the day. Caddies used to be real high end, but
they all kind of look the same to me. Like, this kind of coach design right here kind of has the Rolls look to it too.
Man, I have a feeling, man, if we lived in the 1920s, we probably have the same gripe about cars we have today. Because there's generally just like a prevailing design of a specific decade, and every car looks like that. Like, every car from the 20s looks just like this Cadillac, basically.
Now, hell no, man. This was all the rich people were rolling around in right here. You didn't have one of these things unless you was rich.
Let me go pull up a 1926 Buick. Let me go pull one up. I'll show you. That, wait a minute, did they not have Buick in the 1920s? Okay, I'll go pull up a Dodge. I'll go pull up a Dodge. What the hell? They don't have a 1920-something Dodge? They don't... What the hell are they talking about around here? Oh, here we go.
Dodge brothers, they didn't come around till a minute.
Man, the Dodge brothers, they suing Ford because he's giving his employees a good life. But anyways, I mean, they all do look very similar. I mean, that kind of looks a lot like that.
Nah, the Cadillac's on a whole other level. This right here is a totally different animal right here.
Hold it. I know what we're looking for here. We're looking for a packet, right? Ooh, damn, these packets actually kind of looking a little busted. I mean,
yeah, these are the lower trims right here. This is like the SE.
Man, Packard had a reputation back in the day. They didn't even have a marketing budget because their word of mouth was so good about Packards that they were able to make their sales that way. That bit them in the ass back in the 50s. Well, later on in the 50s and 60s, because then the quality started to go down the drain. And then, asking someone who owns one wasn't really a good sales pitch anymore. But let's take a look at a Studebaker. Studebaker. Yeah, a 1927 Studebaker. Actually, yeah, you know what, Matthew, you're kind of right. Yeah, that Cadillac does really look a step above the rest, at least compared to these.
It's like the difference between, like, let's take something, the best-selling truck in America, the F-150. You have the sport trim, you have the FX4, you have the Raptor, the King Ranch. The difference between the Cadillac and that Packard is kind of like the difference between a King Ranch or a Sport F-150 a little bit. It's a pretty big difference.
It is a pretty big difference. Now that we're looking at this up close. Ooh, look at the Speedster, though. Bro, I kind of like those. I always thought they were cool.
This is probably the equivalent of a Lamborghini Gallardo.
I mean, it might actually be. I mean, it might, I don't think you're wrong on that. But, getting back to that Grand Floridian deal, I just don't get the whole appeal of the Grand Floridian. And, there was that one time, I don't know if y'all remember this, but there was this one time that at this, beach, I believe it was this one or this one down here, there was, a gator that came up and attacked some kid, and then Disney went through and, exterminated the gators in the Seven Seas Lagoon. But, I don't know. I just don't, I gotta be honest with y'all, folks, I just can't really get around the appeal of Disney, especially because of how expensive it is these days. And then also how kind of fake and forced it feels. Because it's if you wanted to have, that Grand Floridian feel, I mean, there's a lot of hotels down in, West Palm Beach and stuff that you could probably get that kind of feel for like hardly the price of staying at the Grand Floridian. Or if you wanted to have the Fort Wilderness Lodge, you could go up there to Montana and hang out up there for like 3 weeks, and that'll be the cost of being at Disney for maybe a week. It just seems like it's kind of a rip these days, like the whole deal with Disney. Really most theme parks, honestly. Really most things, like most like major attractions that people know of by name. It just seems like most of them these days are almost like straight up rip-offs from how expensive they are and what you get out of it. Like even like down here, like they made that Star Wars Rise of the Resistance place. Like that place was literally designed, folks. They didn't design it for like theme park enjoyment or anything like that. They literally designed it strategically to where all of the retail shops will be the most prominent and visible thing in there by design, so that way you'll spend as much money as possible. Like it's never about like making sure that you have a truly enjoyable time like the original Disney park did, because it was really having to set itself out from the competition and really make itself the place to go. Like it's not about that anymore. It's just about parting people from their money, and that's it. And nothing else. It's a really messed up sort of a business model that most companies work off of these days. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I will say this though, that hotel up there, that Mini Glacier Hotel, I really like this one. What does the road look like up here that leads to it? Oh wow, this is a really cool spot. I mean, look at these mountains. I mean, these are crazy. But anyways, a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Pretzel's Garage, who puts in the 50. And thank you very much, Pretzel, for that support. We appreciate that. He said, long live the LSA. And any plans on future scale trains purchases and other model railroad companies?
Oh, scale trains. Scale trains. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's actually a few. I mean, I quite like scale trains. I'll make this quick though, because I know that a lot of people might not be into this. But I will tell you up front though, that GEU 50, I really want one. This thing is kind of like objectively ugly. But Scale Trains is made from the video I saw. It's like the greatest one that's ever been made of the U-50. It's got all the bells and whistles that a U-50 would have. And these things are really quite unique in their operational history with the Union Pacific. So I do want one of these things. I don't really think they look that good, but Scale Trains has made the best looking one I've ever seen. And then there's a couple of Norfolk Southern units I want. Basically just more AC-44 C6Ms. Like the TAG Heritage unit, that would be a cool one to have. And maybe a high number C6M. But that's really all that I'm looking for. Because right now I'm really more so leaning towards actually finally making some kind of a layout to operate them on, instead of just getting more engines and more cars. Because I have as much engines as I could ever want. I really need to get a layout to run them on at this point, and start working on that instead. So I might get this I'm probably going to get this U-50. And I might get another AC-44 C6M. But I think that I'm going to keep it at that for now and really slim down on the budget. But I do have to say, folks, if you were a model train person, Skill Trains really does have it going on. I've gotten a couple of different brands of stuff in the past, and Athearn's pretty good, and all the other ones are pretty good. But I'd have to say that for some reason, to me, I think that Skill Trains is a bit of a step above the rest. Not that they sponsor me or anything like that. I just truly think that they make pretty good scale model trains. I think they're pretty decent for what they are. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A huge thanks to you for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Darren, for that support as well. And he said, get that motorbike, Matt, and take one from the chat, Yellow Snow for the Rocket Man. Honestly, Darren, I have honestly given up on doing the motorbike thing because I'll be completely honest. Budgeting for the bike, it's a money drain. It really is, and I prefer to have a financial security over the motorbike. As much as I would love to have a motorcycle, it's just not quite. It would be stretching it a bit because the insurance on a bike for someone my age at 25, a male at 25 on a sport bike, insurance is crazy. It got much better when I turned 25, but it's still crazy even at that. So unless I want to get like a small like 250 or something like that, which would be really like going back in time for me because I outgrew like a 250 or a 500 a long time ago. So it'd be kind of a little bit underwhelming to a certain degree, and then I'd still be be having to, make that payment on the bike. So I kind of just wrote it off. I just started bicycling. I'm like, hell, I'll just go bicycling. No insurance on the thing. It's a lot more affordable than a motorcycle. So sadly, I gave up on it. But maybe one day, though. Maybe one day. But thank you for the support, and we do appreciate that. And we will get one from the chat. And the live chat question goes to none other than Ludus, who said if Iran completes the blockade, it will help Russia because the price of oil will rise. And have you thought about that?
That is true. It would also rise for us as well. So that is definitely true. I would have to agree with you there. And also, I do thank you massively for the support and how the channel keep running, sponsoring our live chat. But before we move on to the next one, I do want to point out something that's incredibly interesting right here, folks. RCH-115 took off from what appears to be Zweibrücken, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which I believe would be the Ramstein Air Base. Yeah, there it is, the Ramstein Air Base in this area. And it flew to Azerbaijan, where that C-130J Commando 2 is hanging out right now. And it appears that it dropped something off and it flew back. Now, that is quite interesting. That seems to suggest that there are U.S. forces that are basing out of Azerbaijan right now.
Yeah, it is interesting. A lot of movement, too, tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Here goes another one. It also appears to be taking the very same flight path as this C-17 down to Azerbaijan as well. So that appears to be a second one on the way down there.
Jeez.
Let's see here. There's
Russian.
Yeah, that's a special flight squad, apparently coming back from Dakar in Senegal, and they're going back to Russia. There's also this C-5 Galaxy, which is literally flying right along the Iranian border back to Dover in the UK. Or actually, Dover, Delaware, correction there, not Dover in the UK. And we can also see a Kuwaiti Air Force C-17 that's up in the air, and a couple of UAE aircraft and Egyptian aircraft, and we have another U.S. Air Force aircraft that's flying back from Riyadh. We also have some sort of a military command transport, and anything else.
Man, I just feel like, just seeing this, and this is just one time frame that we're looking at here. It's like this 24/7 for the past couple of weeks at least. It's been like this. So, I mean, it just looks like with these levels and size of preparations, it feels like a war on Iran is what they're going to go for. Like this is preparations to go well beyond anything that we did for the 12-day war when we hit the nuclear sites with the B-2s. This is orders of magnitude larger than that.
Yeah, I'd have to say, this is quite large. I think something is going to be happening, because this is, like, there are literal conga lines going in and out of the Middle East right now of C-17s and C-5s. There's no way that we're not going to do something. If we didn't do something, that would be unbelievable at this point. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Darren, for that support. He said,
Hey!
With the Ruski horses, I wonder what they are rolling in their cigarettes.
That's a good question. I wonder, Tavarish, what do they roll in the cigarettes of horses? Salt block? Let's ask Lavrov. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that I addressed that quite well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, someone said, I think he's going to back off. I don't think so. Because he didn't necessarily, arguably, maybe you could say he backed off with Venezuela because technically the Maduro regime is still in charge. The only difference is Maduro is currently sitting in a cell in the United States. So I guess some people could say that maybe he backed off there, but you got to remember, though, the interests in the Middle East are much, much stronger than the interest in South America. Like, South America seems like a pet project for the president. The Middle East, that is something there that's been a dead set foregone conclusion before he even took office, what was going to happen with that. We saw it with the B-2 strikes on the nuclear sites. That was considered somewhat unprecedented. And I think we're about to see something else even more unprecedented with this, just because there's so many interests that are sort of connected with U.S. officials in that region. I think that we're going to see action be taken with some pretty good resolution behind it.
Breaking news! Breaking news! We have a CMV-22B Osprey of the United States Navy and the Rotary Airlift Wing of the USS Abraham Lincoln taking off from Muscat, Oman, and heading back out into the Arabian Sea, showing that there is some carrier-to-shore operations going on right now.
Now that is something right there. Isn't that a shame? Like no matter how much you try to hide a carrier, like you can try to censor out commercial satellite imagery as much as you want. You can try to keep the ship completely covert. You can shoot down the Iranian drones where they see the carrier. But the one thing that always gives it away is the support flights. Every single time, the support flights give the thing away because they have to turn on ADS-B for those flights because they're flying around commercial, so they have to. So, but it kind of just messes up the whole thing. It looks like they turned it off back near Muscat though, because it looks like it's on predictive path at this point.
Yeah, also, by the way, this is a little bit of a very simplified view of what's going on out here. Let me show you what everything looks like. So there it is in the midst of all of the active air traffic in the Middle East right now. Just to give you all an idea of how busy the airspace is through this area, that's why they have to turn on the ADS-B transponders in specific areas, and that gives away where the carrier is at, because the carrier is still at the Northern Arabian Sea, because the CMV-22 Osprey is operating near the carrier. It's never left behind. So with that, I hope that does address that. Well, very interesting development right there. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, Coleslaw, he said, did I just catch that? And I will give credit to Coleslaw. Coleslaw caught that. And also, I think one other person caught it as well about those Ospreys heading out. So a huge shout out to you, Coleslaw, for catching that. And we also have a 20 from Crispy. And thank you very much, Crispy, as well, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that. There is no comment to address, but Crispy is a longtime channel legend, and he keeps the show crispy with that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Crispy, and helping this channel to keep on running, because you help us to make the show extra crispy. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Tulsa Tater. And thank you very much, Tulsa, for that 20. They said, whoa, I'm back. And I love my two bros, keeping it real. Much thanks. And take a question from the chat, LTLSA, and Slava Ukraine.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And I thank you massively for helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to be on air. We wouldn't be able to even receive kind words, because we wouldn't be able to pay our bills. We would be under a bridge right now. And so I got to thank you massively so much to all of y'all once again who enjoy the show and throw in kind words and support, because both of those things help to make this channel possible, both by helping to make it financially possible and also giving us the encouragement to keep making it possible. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the live chat question in honor of the super chat goes to Nick. He said, do you think they'll try to exfiltrate Khamenei as well?
I'm doubting it. I think they're probably going to go for airstrikes on them, because it's going to be dangerous to get a special forces unit in that far and successfully exfiltrate with them. So they'll probably go with an airstrike. It's a safer, more surefire option of doing the same thing without putting any operators or armed forces at significant risk of injury or death. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Coleslaw, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Coleslaw, as well. They said, thanks for the great news tonight, guys. And there is some Ospreys off the coast of Oman. Is that something to do with the Lincoln?
Yes, it is. Those are CMV-22Bs. And let me show you what those look like, because they don't look like your normal U.S. Army or Air Force Ospreys. Oh, no. They look like Navy Ospreys. They have this cute little paint job right here that has Navy on the tail section. Let me see if I can get y'all a better view of that. There you go. Navy. And they have these really neat little paint jobs. I like them, honestly. I think they look really cool.
What they say about the Navy?
What do they say about the Navy?
They're really good on the water.
You know, I've heard other things about the Navy.
Oh, well. Oh, where is it going?
Yeah, I think it kind of, like, I'm just kidding. I wasn't going there, but your reaction was hilarious, so I had to play on it for a second. But beyond that, these are specialized Ospreys that are operated by the United States Navy and a specialized variant of them. So the fact that these Ospreys are CMV-22Bs and these are carried on the carriers, that means that the Lincoln is nearby, near enough by that this thing is able to fly to Muscat and Oman and then fly back out to the carrier. Honestly, I would like to be on one of those flights. I mean, that is pretty cool. You get to conduct shore-based operations and then go back to the carrier. It flies like an aircraft, lands like a helicopter. That's pretty cool, honestly. I think these things are very neat. Let me see if I can show you some other pictures of these. Here's another one. I gotta say, the tail art on that one's really cool for the squad that's a part of. That's really neat. Here's a picture of it at night. That's pretty sick.
I remember back when these were cutting edge.
I remember back when these were cutting edge too, when they were talking about, are these things even reliable? And the answer was kind of it was
A little bit.
like back at the start, these things were actually kind of sketch, but nowadays they're actually fairly reliable, like most other aircraft. They're not going to be foolproof, but they're pretty decent. But what's even crazier, folks, is that the Army is going to be getting their own, which is the Bell V-280. It's the MV-75 now, but back during the Army's bid for it, it was called the 280 Valor. There it is. So they're getting their own. It's not an Osprey. It's not. I don't even think it's made by the same company. Well, wait a minute. Doesn't Bell make the Ospreys though?
I think.
It might be made by the same company. It might be made by the same company. But they're basically getting their own version of an Osprey. It'll be a tilt rotor. And this is going to replace all of the Army utility helicopters, which are the Blackhawks right now, that are currently in service. I'm going to be really interested to see how this thing works in the future. Because, it's really cool and it's really revolutionary, especially for the Army. But here's my question, folks. And this is something I don't really think the Army has thought about yet. These things, if they're attached to an air cav regiment, are going to be incredibly fast. I mean, it's going to be moving the infantry around at speeds never before seen by the Army's rotary aviation. But in the air cav, the infantry are supported by attack helicopters. The attack helicopters are not fast enough to keep up with these things. So when they get to the battlefield, like when the air cav gets to the battlefield or the air assault infantry start disembarking, where in the world is their indirect and direct fire support in the form of the Apaches? Because they're still going to be a ways back, because these things are going to absolutely gap them in terms of how quick they can get somewhere. So I don't really know how that's going to work. Like, I actually started to think about that a while ago. It's like, are they going to find a replacement for the Apache? Because it would have to be fast enough to keep up with these, or the Apaches would have to take off well in advance of these, and then these are going to take off and get there in a far shorter period of time. And then at that point, the maneuverability is kind of moot, because you're still having to wait on your slowest element, which at this point is now the attack helicopters, to get somewhere to either clear out an area or cover an area for the air assault infantry to land and disembark. So I'll be honest with you, I really don't know how that one's going to work. But it's still a very cool sort of a tilt rotor, though. I think it's a really neat looking one. What do you think of it, Matthew? Do you like it?
I would say it's pretty cool. I think it looks sleeker.
Yeah, it does. It looks sleeker than that Sikorsky bid. Like, let's see, the Sikorsky, I think it's the Raider X. I think it is this thing. It's the big, no, it's not this thing. Oh, here it is. The Raider. It's kind of like that. This big bulbous
thing. Yeah, it's kind of similar.
Let's see, when the hell was let's see, it wasn't the Sikorsky Raider X, it was something else. Let's see, Army bid. Here it is. It was this thing, this big old boy right here, chunky thing. It actually got up to kind of like the similar speed that the Valor gets up to, but the Army didn't go with it for a myriad of reasons. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we possibly can. And why in the world do you not find the live flight? But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I was just laughing here because I was doing a quick search for breaking news. Then I came across a news article, which was written by a pretty well-known publication that I won't name, but made a whole article about, here's the title of the article, by the way. It says, top secret U.S. Air Force jet spotted near Area 51 amid the UFO disclosure claims. And you know what the top secret jet is, by the way?
It's the RQ-170 Sentinel.
No, it's the government Janet flights that take you to the national security sites.
Oh my God.
These are not like, yes, it's top secret, like the fine little minute details are top secret about it. If you can, if most people know about it at this point. I mean, it's a government shuttle flight from the Las Vegas International Airport to the national security site. We've known about this for decades. Like, it's been the public information for a very long time. So I don't understand why they're making a big deal about this. Like, it's some type of rare spotting. You can actually spot the Janet flights on ADS-B for a long time. They only turn off their transponders when they get into the national security site, just to obscure exactly which landing strip they're going to. But it's not anything new. I'm like, we've seen this for ages.
I thought they'd talk about something actually interesting, like the Sentinel, not a Janet flight. Like, this is literally just like an Army transport flight in terms of like how special it is. These happen, I think, daily.
Yeah, they have multiple times a day, actually, because you got to take workers to and from the place. It works just like a normal public transport system, but it's just a secret system. Obviously, only government employees with a top secret clearance can actually board the flights, but it works the same way. You just simply select your time you're getting on the flight, you get on it, and you go.
You know what's kind of interesting about that, Matthew? This just hit me. By FAA regulation, I believe this aircraft has to have 2 flight attendants on board.
Yes, it does.
So do they have Area 51 flight attendants?
Yes, they do. They have flight attendants for these things, by the way. They actually do, but they also have to be cleared, like themselves.
Huh, that's interesting. So do they have like snack service on this aircraft, or is it just very bare bones?
Now that I don't know. I don't know that part. I can tell you this though: with the government running these planes, I guarantee you the inside is nothing to be bragging about. I can guarantee you that these things are very government in the inside of them. If you could probably see a picture.
Man, I bet you those flight attendants where you say, "Excuse me, do you have sit your ass down and shut up." Like, it's like, I'm just here to get paid. Like, I'm a federal employee. They can't fire me. I'm tenured or something along those lines. It's probably something like that. Oh, man, I would be honest with y'all, folks. Flying on one of these things, it's not a treat, I'm sure. I bet you the inside of that thing looks like it's worn out worse than Chris's mom. And I mean, that's pretty bad. So I'm not going to lie, though, man. I mean, like, that little red stripe on the side, though, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, it doesn't. They didn't do any favors for making the thing unrecognizable. Like they've been better off just not painting anything on it, making it completely white. That'd have been probably the better way to go. But also, one thing that like I don't understand about conspiracy theorists, they don't understand that the people, just because you work at like the Nevada National Security Site, if that means Groom Lake or like different parts, because there's more parts than just Area 51. That's just one area of the site. There's plenty of other places in the place that there's all kinds of workers working at. Most of the people working there could not tell you very much, like even if you asked them something about it, because all the work that's done on these secret projects is compartmentalized extremely closely. Like you might have one person working on one part of a project that has no clue what the application for that part that they're working on is going to have for the whole, like the entire project. And that's intentional. So that way, if there's a leak or somebody is a rat or something, they can't blow the whole project wide open after all these billions of dollars have been spent on it. So, I mean, they could be able to tell you a fun fact or something like, oh, this screw goes here, this screw goes there, but they're not going to be able to tell you like, oh, here's the master plan. It's like they're not going to be privy to that, like most workers aren't.
Yeah, like a lot of usually in places like this, most things are classified top secret on a need-to-know basis, meaning that you get as only the information necessary for you to do the very little job that you're doing and nothing else. No one, like everyone who comes into Area 51, they don't get to sit down like the villain twirling his mustache where they tell them the whole master plan of everything. Like they don't get that. They get told, we're working on this one thing. Like, we're working on this one elevator system right here, and it has to meet these specs. And then they work on that. Or there needs to be an ejection seat here that needs to handle these speeds, this sort of G's. It needs to be able to do this. And then they work on that. But they don't know what the hell that ejection seat's going into. They don't know what elevator that wing is going to be attached to. They don't know any of that. Like, none of that's needed to be known by most of these people. It's just a part of the job that they need to know. They get that done, and everything else you don't need to know, so why are you even asking about it? And generally asking about that kind of stuff might, start getting some people to put in some reports on you going, hey, this guy seems kind of questionable. He's asking a lot of stuff. And then you could start to be surveilled, because it's like, hell, you could be possibly some sort of a double agent working for someone else trying to find out more. And that's not really good for them or for you for that matter.
That's true. Also, by the way, a fun fact, I see some people talking about this. They said someone said jokingly, they said the Area 51 janitor knows. Well, I don't know about Area 51 specifically, like about that whole situation, because obviously it's staffed by the military. So, they have people that do that. I mean, it may not be hiring like private sector custodians to do that work. But for example, like in the CIA, like headquarters, like in Langley, there are janitors that actually hold top secret clearances. Like it's a real thing. But not every single custodial staff member is going to have a top secret clearance. Some of them just have normal, like lower level clearances, like secret or lower than that. Like I think maybe confidential for some of them, but it depends on what areas of the facility they have access to. If they're like doing janitorial services for more sensitive areas, they might have a higher clearance. But they get paid the same. That's the unfortunate part. Is I think the average janitor working at like an intel agency like the CIA or the NSA or something, they're going to make around like $45,000 a year or something, even with their clearance. So they got to go through all that trouble of the single scope and all that stuff just to get in and do the custodial work. and make, honestly, like kind of like low pay for that. So I don't see how that's worth it. I guess some people just want to have the CIA janitor position, I guess.
Yeah, and also the reason why they have classified clearances, folks, is not because they sit the janitor down and go, okay, here's the scoop. It's so that way, if they pass by like the CIA director, the CIA director's like, so did you waterboard that guy and get him well enough? Like he's not going to sit there and go, oh my god, and then go rat that out to the public, and then he didn't have a security clearance to hear it or anything, and then if anyone's around that's at a high enough security level, the guy can't do his job. So that's generally the reason why they have security clearances, so that way, if they end up being around anywhere where something extremely class or sensitive is being said, generally they're okay to hear it, and it's not going to cause any issues because they've already been vetted well enough that they wouldn't cause an issue if they heard it. That's the reason why. It's nothing it's nothing insane like the janitor knows everything. It's just so that way if he hears something, he's already cleared, and it's not going to be an issue like, wait a minute, is that guy going to go out and start telling the whole world about that? And funnily enough, everyone in the White House that works there also has to go through that same thing as well. Like all of the assistants to the president, the cooks, all those folks. Like basically everyone in the well, not all of them, but most of them do. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Interesting facts, nonetheless. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Deck, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Deck, for that support. They said, I've worked on MCM ships for 20 years in the Strait out of Bahrain. Our minesweepers just decommissioned and left the area 2 weeks ago, and we have no real defenses against mines and been trying to warn of this.
Wait a minute, hang on, hold up. Really? Let me go check that. Oh. He's right. All 4 of them were decommissioned, and they're all out of the Navy now. Huh,
That's
I guess their hulls were made of wood, actually, so that way they wouldn't be magnetic for magnetic anti-ship mines. So, I gotta tell you, that's not good to know, Decade. That's not good to know. So now basically all we have are the CH-53s carrying the sleds. That's it. So, yeah, if they mine the Strait, we actually don't have any demining capabilities. Technically, a littoral combat ship can kind of do it. Let me go pull up the Independence class frigate, so that way I can show you all this. The Independence class technically could try and do demining, but it's not purpose-built as a minesweeper. And that's kind of where the issues come in, because it doesn't really have all of the neat little trimmings, basically cranes and whatnot, to be able to lift mines out of the water and then work on them and defuse them. So while it could try and do it, it's not really going to be able to do it to any level of efficiency like the actual purpose-built minesweepers could. Let me go see. Let's see here. Dang, I'm going to have to do some more research on that one and try and get some a little bit more information about what minesweeping capabilities we might have. But it's fairly slim at this point, especially considering that those were decommissioned. I got to say, I don't like that you pointed that out, because at least at the beginning of the show when I was explaining that all, there generally was at least 4 minesweepers that could do that job from what I researched earlier. I never saw in my research today that they had been decommissioned. Like, that had not crossed any of the radars at all. So I thank you for sharing that. That's not good to hear, though. But I do thank you for helping us to know that, so that way we know that if they mine the Strait, basically we got to call in a whole other country from somewhere else to come and demine the Strait with us. I don't know if the Israelis have minesweepers. They might. But we don't. So, interesting. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our, excuse me, goodness, I don't know what's got me choking, but our next one here goes to Some Canadian Dude. And thank you very much, Some Canadian Dude, for that support. He said, so, y'all see the Iranian official claiming asylum in Canada? It's safe to say that we found the missing Iranian planes.
No, I actually hadn't heard about that today. Matthew, did you hear about that?
I definitely have not heard about that. I have not heard about that. I was doing a quick search for it literally right this second.
Huh. Well, I will have to look into that, but I do thank you, Master, for the support and sharing that with us. But sadly, we just didn't hear about that. I think that passed over our radar today. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best we possibly can, although we didn't really know a lot about the topic, sadly. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, text Chris said, "Don't forget OPSEC, boys. LOL. We're not privy to anything. We're not privy to anything. So there's nothing that we can say that's damaging. By the way, also by the way, to the individual that told us that information up there at the top, I think that information is also public domain. By the way, but we do appreciate that nonetheless. But we also have a $10 support from Robert Krogan, and thank you very much, Robert Krogan, for that support. He said, "Good evening, LSA and enforcers, and thanks for the hard work."
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying our hard work. I've got to say a humongous thanks to you so much for supporting their channels that we can keep this hard work going and make this thing possible every day. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. And they said, could the IRGC be stringing the USA along to make them attack during Ramadan to evoke religious sentiment in the Muslim world?
Highly unlikely. I don't think that's going to be the case. Generally, religious holidays don't have that much significance, especially in the modern day and age, for really anyone. Like, hell, most people actually try and conduct attacks over the holidays because they think that the enemy might be a little bit off guard because it is a holiday. So I don't really think it'll have that much of an impact, to be entirely honest. So I don't really think that's really their main goal. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a big thanks to you so much once again. And also, the Minesweeper information, folks, is not OPSEC. All I did was go and pull up my account on the DoD's website and then look through. Like, I'm just kidding, by the way.
He's joking. He's joking.
I'm joking. I'm joking. We don't have any classified information. Like, that is publicly available information. You can actually go pull up U.S. Minesweepers decommissioned, and there will be about a dozen articles that you'll be able to find on that were published around September and October of last year, saying that they were going to be out of commission within the next several months. So nothing class there. It's all unclass, as they call it. So with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from America is the best country. And thank you very much for the support. They said, I first discovered you guys during the 12-day war, and you guys are amazing. I can't believe with how it's going with Iran, and it's all coming full circle. And keep up the good work, and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for watching us for so long. We're always incredibly honored that folks like you enjoyed this channel and found it during the 12-day war, and we're happy to have you here still with us to this day. And I got to say, it is crazy to watch how things develop nowadays, and I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Live Animal. Once again, they said, are the captains of oil tankers allowed to refuse driving the ship in Hormuz? If they want to get fired.
I mean, yeah, that's really the answer. I mean, they are the captain of the ship, responsible for making the decisions at sea. But if they make a decision that they think company brass is not going to like, once they get into port, wherever that is, they might actually be fired and then given a flight back to wherever they came from. So generally, it's, yes, they're the captain of the ship. They can say that something's unsafe and they're not going to do it. And while they are on that ship and still the captain, they can make that call. No one could just fire them on the spot, technically, by maritime law. But once they arrive at that next port of call, they can be fired right into there as soon as that ship ties up at dock. And they could say, you're fired, here's the ticket, you're going home. And send the guy back to wherever he came from, and he's out of a job. So generally the answer to that would be no, because right now the risk assessment might be by these companies that's not an extremely high risk yet to sail through the Strait of Hormuz, so they're probably going to tell them, just go ahead and shoot for it, hope for the best. If anything happens, call the U.S. Navy. And then if they get captured, that's going to be their problem at that point, the company's problem. But if the risk is incredibly high, then the company's going to say, no, don't sail through there. We don't want to lose the ship, the cargo, and then have to pay out, through insurance and whatnot, to this company that's lost all of their cargo that they ordered. And also, we don't want to try and get you all out of a hostage situation, so don't sail through there. It's dangerous. And then they might tell them to moor up or anchor up somewhere, and then they might send most of the crew home on some flights from, say, Qatar or elsewhere, and then keep a skeletal crew on board until the situation improves, and then they'll fly everyone back out, put them back on the ship, and then they'll be back on their way. Or if the company really doesn't like their employees, they could just tell them all to stay on the ship for however long it takes, and then once the situation subsides, then they just go and set sail again to wherever they were supposed to be going. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kachulian343, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Kachulian, for that support. He said, I think Iran caught on that we aren't ready to strike yet, and they know that in order to do the most damage possible, they have to mine the strait right now to cost the U.S. the most time.
And that could be the case. That definitely could be the case. I think the Iranians are trying to look at maximizing as much damage as they can and screwing us over as much as they possibly will be able to. And that's why I believe that we shouldn't be negotiating with them. This is a country that we cannot generally trust. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Live Animal yet again, who put in a 10. They said, a day before yesterday, there was one incident, then 2 incidents, and then 40 boats. Any waiting will lead to a catastrophe by coming weekend.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying here. I think that's what we're both saying here. The U.S. has to act quickly to be able to deal with this situation. Otherwise, it's going to end up becoming a disaster. People don't want to believe us. People want to say that we're just deriding the president, and I just don't think people get it. They just don't get it. It doesn't have anything to do whether you like the guy. You know, it doesn't matter. It matters what's good for their country, and that's what we're working off of here. We don't really care what you think about the orange dude and who he is, and whether you like him or not, or whether you want to act like everything he does is a good idea. A good idea would be attacking the Iranians right now, today. Right now, if we could. I mean, like, they're not to be trusted. I mean, what are they doing with 40 fast attack boats in the Strait of Hormuz? Having a picnic? Well, they're obviously not doing anything good. We can tell you that. But still, a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. I'd 100% agree with you. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have another 10 from Kachulian, who said, also, as you guys are pointing out, if they force the U.S. into this position, they gain heavy control over the battlefield right now, out of the gate in that area, and it's like digging trenches before they rush you.
And pretty much that's true. The thing is that's kind of funny about this. We could actually still overthrow the Iranian government after they lay that minefield. But that minefield's still going to be there. And we're still going to have to find a way to clear that thing out at some point eventually. It can't stay mined forever. But even the minefield could last longer than the Iranian government does if we go to war. So basically what they're doing is saying, if we are going to be screwed over and our government's going to be destroyed, we are going to screw everyone else over before we go out. That's basically what they're doing, is a scorched earth tactic down there in the Strait of Hormuz. We can't allow that to happen. We just cannot allow it to happen. I don't know why some people don't get that. It's not that we have some sort of a fondness for war, but war is sometimes necessary with countries that we cannot reason to negotiate with. And Iran is one of those countries. Right now would be a good time to start taking some action against them. Otherwise, they're going to take action against us, and it's going to be pretty hard to fix it once it happens. But anyways, I hope that does address it the best I can. Big thanks to you for the support, and help this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Live Animal yet again, who puts in a 10. And they said, imagine sending your most fierce soldiers ready to face the U.S. Armada in a boat, ready for any miscalculation, and they're acting decisively.
That's interesting right there. Well, we'll have to think about that and put that in consideration. And I do thank you, Ashley, for the support and giving us that idea to think about. We'll have to sit there and simmer on it. And I got to thank you humongously once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Giving It All Back, and thank you for the support. They said, coffee filter and Costco chicken fun. I really like the channel, guys, and I appreciate the effort. I know it ain't much, but thanks.
Oh my God. You just said coffee filters. Y'all aren't going to believe this, folks. Y'all remember back when y'all were saying, like, oh, Matthew must have obviously stolen the coffee filters because, you know, like they
obviously stolen the coffee filters. What do you mean?
Well, that's what they were saying. Like, people were like, oh, he obviously stole the coffee filters. So I got a crazy update to that story for all of y'all that happened today. So me and Matthew, when we went out to that Bell Canyon Trail, he came by to pick me up. And before he picked me up, I was like, I want to go outside and check and make sure nothing's out there because I'm waiting for some packages. So I opened up the door, looked down, and there was an Amazon package. Now, I hadn't ordered Amazon, like, at all. Like, it's a package from another company. It's actually Scale Trains, funnily enough. But anyways, beyond that, I looked down, and I was like, what the hell is this? And so I picked it up, opened it. It was the coffee filters I had ordered 3 months ago. They finally showed up today. So the coffee filters that never showed up, that I was like, I don't know where the hell they went because they were supposed to show up and they just weren't there when I opened up the door that day. They showed up today, 3 months later. Now
Oh, you got the
that,
special coffee filters.
man,
You got the special ones.
dude, I opened it and like a puff of white smoke came out of it, and it kind of smelled like anthrax. But it didn't bother me too much. I then went and ate on some sheet metal to feel better, and that generally did the trick. Beyond that, I hope y'all enjoyed that update to the story. The coffee filters that disappeared off of the doorstep because I never saw them. They actually just never made it. They just finally made it today, 3 months later. So, I don't know why. I don't even know how the hell that happens 3 months later, but it is what it is. Anyways, huh?
Did you use them tonight?
No. Like, no, they're off in a special corner right now. They're in decon.
I'm about to say, you're sitting here talking about, I'm feeling under the weather. Meanwhile, I was talking about these random coffee filters that showed up 3 months later out of the blue with no warning whatsoever. He's like, oh, I feel a little woozy. It's like, that's some special filters, I'll tell you.
I think it's a little bit more of a pressure thing, like, if you know what I mean. It's like, I think it's more of that. But anyways, with that, it has nothing to do with stress, by the way, folks. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. And they said, are they storing biological weapons in the cold storage facilities?
We don't think so, because that's like a general food cold storage facility sort of a deal. So they really wouldn't put, like, say chlorine gas or sarin gas right next to the cold chickens that everyone's about to be buying at the supermarket the next day in Iran. So not quite. But I do thank you for support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, someone said, get an apology, Matt. I was telling y'all this the whole time. I was saying he lost him or something.
I didn't ever blame you for him. I didn't blame you. I was like, he didn't do it. I was like, he didn't do it. It was everyone else that. I'm not apologizing. I did nothing wrong. It was an assistant. They just clicked the button to send it. That's all. That's all.
I'm telling you, he lost them a little bit. He lost them. They were on the way, but he just lost track of them due to time. So I just happened to get caught in the mix. But anyways, jumping into our next one here, this one's going to go to none other than Pleasure Burn, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again. They said, one from Matt, please, and make him take the question from the top of his head. Thanks. Now, see there, that's something there. I do appreciate that support, by the way. And he wants one off the top of the dome. Just a question that I just thought of on the spot. Now, there is something that happens occasionally. There's a thing called brain fog, they call it. It happens to plague politicians more than it plagues the rest of us. But it's plaguing me a little bit right now with this question off the top of my head. So I'll have to defer to a question from the spreadsheet, that is.
Senator
in honor
McConnell?
of Pleasure Burn. Well, I'm sorry, what you called me?
Senator McConnell, are you okay?
I think that we ought to probably think about maybe retiring, perhaps a little early.
Oh my goodness, it seems though he's tired of answering questions, everyone. It's not like he just, went into some sort of a cognitive fog. So everyone's going to have to disperse now. There's two reasons, folks.
No, I'm actually fine. I'm just, it's the frog in me coming out.
I'm just going to trip and fall again when I get in front of a large crowd of reporters, because clearly that has nothing to do with my age, since I'm about the age of 930, like most other people.
You see, I'm just a beginner. It's not like I've been in here my whole life and been in front of the cameras my whole life. I'm just a beginner. I get a little nervous.
Now, folks, in the modern day, there's two reasons why they end a press briefing early with the press, and it doesn't really seem like there's a reason. One, they're so old they can't even keep a straight train of thought. Or two, they've shit themselves. That's the only two reasons they end the press briefings anymore. It's those two reasons, nothing else. So if you ever sit there and see in the middle of like a press briefing, they're like, all right, everyone, we have the greatest news. All right, everyone, I'll see you around. Like, you know what happened. Like, you kind of get an idea there. Also, when everyone's, like, literally, like, cupping their noses in the background, like, pinching them, kind of gives you an idea as well. Or when someone's literally in the middle of talking, you see, Mr. Senator, I have this grand plan. All right, everyone, thank you for your time. You also know that that's that reason as well. That's the second one. But anyways, with that, we're on to that question. What do we got, Matthew?
Man, they will hold on for dear life on those positions. They will not let those things go. It's like a pit bull named Cupcake when he gets a hold of somebody's leg, like a nice juicy leg, like the mailman or something like that. They're just not letting go. That mailman's not getting away. Cupcake's gonna drag him to the yard. That's how those politicians are in these
Bruh.
positions nowadays. That old age isn't letting go of that position.
Bro,
Hell no.
hold up, man. I got it. This is what the most U.S. politicians look like when they first get the position. This is what they look like 50 years later.
Man, they love that position. They just can't let it go. I don't know what it is. I guess it's maybe the power and the relevance of the position. They simply don't want to let it go. But it's also like when people tend to get older, they happen to start thinking a lot more about legacy when they start getting older. So they may think, I can't lose my relevance. I'm getting older now. I don't want to lose this because my faculties are slipping. So at least I can hold on to this position and feel like relevant or something.
Man, honestly, man, like it's like they turn into like that little creature from Lord of the Rings. Like honestly, a lot of Lord of the Rings references here. Like that one that had the ring that was always talking about my precious. Like, dude, that's how they're like with a position. My precious. Like someone's like, okay, you're like 93 now. Maybe it's time to give up your position as a representative. No, I won't do that. Hell no. It's like you're so old, you don't even know where you're at. Yes, I do. Where are you at? I'm in New Jersey. You're in the Capitol building. It's like, what are you talking about? You're so old, you don't even know where you're at right now. But they won't give them up.
That's the best way to have it, honestly. Like, yeah, if you can be in DC and have a career there and not even know you're there, that's probably the best way to have it.
Man, meanwhile, man, they're sitting in their office, like drooling and spitting on themselves as some lobbies come in. Okay, it's time for you to vote this way, let's go, this way. This way. Okay, good. Now go out there and vote. Like, it's like, oh boy, that's the right kind of politician, folks. Someone who's so out of it, they don't even know what the hell they're doing. And that's like, a third of Washington at this point. It's really something. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the question. What do we got, Matthew?
And our question, our live chat question, or our next super chat question?
I think it's our live chat question.
So grabbing a live chat question in honor of Pleasure Burn, I think. This one goes to Tom Upshaw, who said, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you think that World War III is going to break out officially by the end of the year?
It's always hard to say, and I can't ever say with definitive certainty. I would say that in the modern day and age, with how unstable and uncertain the world is, it's really a 50-50 each year, and I really couldn't give you anything better than it could or couldn't happen at any moment right now. It's a very tense time in the world, so I hope that it's addressed it the best I can. Big thanks to you for the support. Sadly, I can't really get more certain than that, but with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Crispy, by the way. You put in another Crispy $10 support, and we do appreciate it very much, Crispy. And thank you very much for once again supporting the channel bigly. And we also have a 10 from Pleasure Burn once again, who said, to my brothers from another mountain, smoke signals coming your way.
Hey, and we love our mountains around here. We love the mountains around here, I tell you. I wonder if there's any other trails that we could show you, like this one. Wow, look at that natural beauty. Those mountains in the distance really invoke that wild natural feel. And you got great mountains like White Baldy. Hey, I'm a person here. But beyond that, we got like White Baldy here. Look at that. They call it White Baldy because it's white and it's bald. Let's see here. Mr. Clean comes to mind. But beyond that, I gotta say, a huge thanks to you for the support. We love our mountains. They are absolutely gorgeous. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 5 and said, China is having big turmoil at home, the kind of turmoil that Putin had in 2022.
They are having that big turmoil at home. The kind of turmoil that make you want to boogie. But I do thank you massively for the support, and we are keeping an eye on it. Whenever we get any verifiable information out of China, we always make sure to run it by y'all, because it is an interesting drama to keep up with. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Chris A. Checker Taxi, who puts in a 5. And Chris, thank you very much for that support. He said, I think it's the region hamstringing the U.S. Wanting defense and anti-missile assurances, hence a larger buildup in anti-air assets. It's all about the oil.
I think it probably is. I would agree with you on that. But at the same time, we reach a critical mass of air defense systems in the area to where any further ones is just adding redundancy, and even the Middle Eastern allies will be fine with it. So that's why I'm saying that I would give it until the end of the next weekend here, the one after this one, and then after that, it's clearly the U.S. is trying to deal make because the Iranians have caught them in the deal making loophole as usual, like with Russia and other countries. But a big thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a fine from the Chile. And the Chile said, do you think that Russia would ever give Iran nukes, essentially to use them as a way to corner the Western world without being directly connected to it?
Not necessarily, because Iran is a rogue state, and as easily as they're threatening the West, they could then view Russia as a threat to their hegemony in the Middle East, and then threaten to nuke them with the nukes Russia gave them. So I wouldn't really think that the Russians would want to go out of their way to directly give them a nuclear weapon, because then they might be arming their very future enemy in the Middle East. So I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion, and I do thank you massively for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to JB Najalki. And thank you very much, JB, for that support. He said, big news today, and I ain't spending any time on it. And I ain't spending any time on it because I got every 3 months someone gets torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland, LSA.
And you know, I got some great news. Let 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending another minute on it because every 30 minutes someone's getting mauled by a gator in the outback. But still,
don't say that, man. I've punched blokes in the mouth for less than that.
Is it true that you're of Lebanese descent? Oh, don't say that! I punch blokes in the mouth.
It's like, what's he punching blokes in the mouth for? It's like, is it true or not? It's like, answer the freaking question.
Bro, dude, asking the guy if he was Lebanese was like his trigger. Like, it's like he just goes into like violent rage. It's like, I don't really know why. I mean, you know, I guess he must have known those people that we knew. I mean, you know, if you thought you were affiliated with them, you'd get quite angry. But anyway, with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 5. He said, I know the lore behind the LSA Special Forces. Screw those snakes. Also, have you guys given any thought to rebuild the LSA Special Forces? Long live the Corgis and LT LSA.
I don't particularly remember Elite Spring Army Special Forces. Do you, Matthew?
I don't remember one specifically.
I mean, we have the Lee Spring Army, we have the Lee Spring Army Air Force, the Lee Spring Navy, let's see, the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps, the LSA SC. I don't really remember us ever having a Special Force, because I'm never really a big person into, like, Special Forces stuff, because it seems to be, like, a little bit too elite, and I like things to be a lot more like down to earth and more common man sort of a deal. So I generally like try and talk about like the Lee Spring Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, you know, that sort of a deal. The Air Force. But Special Force, I don't think we ever had one though. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have another 5 from Andrew Honeycutt, and thank you very much, Andrew, for that support. He said, corporate media seems to be co-opting independent content creators for their own purposes. It's very disturbing, in my opinion, and enforcers don't do that.
And I thank you for the support, and of course we don't. Of course we don't, old boy. Why would we? Heavens be. I will tell you something, though. Every once in a while, we would watch someone out there, you know, in some certain networks. They try and imitate what we do. Actually, funnily enough, a lot of people actually try and imitate what we do on YouTube and elsewhere. And it always is funny to watch, because they just kind of miss the special sauce. That we don't do it just to do it. We do it for the love of the game. Like, we're like, let me think here. Who are we like, Matthew, in that regard? Who are we like?
I don't really even know.
I don't even know either. I mean, like, hell, like, kind of like how Dick Cheney had, like, an obsession with oil. We're basically like that for news coverage. We just do it for the love of the game. There's no real reason to it. We just do it for the love of the game, you know? And also for American interest, you know, which I quite do. I do truly love the United States of America. And so with that, a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Plazoth, who put in a $2 support. And thank you very much, Plazoth, for supporting the channel once again. And we also have a 5 from Talos Auditor, who said, why do they not restart older programs? The Comanche, the YF-23, all better than the rest of the world. Slight updates, research done.
Excuse me, are you trying to say that we should bring back the raw? Up the raw. You know, the Irish would love this helicopter. The fact that it was literally the RAH-66. Up the raw. Give me a chopper. Call up the god. Beyond that. I mean, it was all right. They kind of took this, they kind of took concepts of this and moved it on to other airframes in the future. But I would say the Comanche was really cool. I would say I would agree with you. I would agree with you, old boy. I quite liked it. I thought it was neat. I don't know why they didn't, use this thing. There's actually rumors out there that they did use it because there was so much money and so much development that went into this thing for there to be none of them around from what we know now. So we believe that there's like a very limited number of them out there that they kind of use for testing and stuff at some base somewhere, like Area 51 or some other remote facility out in the middle of nowhere. But they generally use them for testing and further development instead of actually trying to use them in their true form. They're trying to evolve them into something even grander than what these were. But anyways, a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than Taoist Auditor, who puts in a 5 and said, coffee plunger, no filter, take it traveling, grind on beans, less than $50 for life, and have good coffee as filter is like toilet water.
And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. Very, very interesting to hear indeed. And so huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And Chris Bruns 528 just said, how do these guys keep going without let up? Crazy. We keep going because we have a love of the game. It really is just that, actually. That and making sure that we can pay our bills. Those two things are our main motivators. Primarily the love of the game, actually, because, I mean, the job market out there is pretty tough, but I mean, we could possibly try and find another job. But I really do it because I love the game of doing this. It's really quite a joy, and it really doesn't feel like work all that much, especially when it finally gets to actually running the show on air. For Matthew, that might be a different story. Matthew's working very hard at the moment right now. My work time is spanned over a longer part of the day, but it's medium intensity. Matthew has a shorter work day on the show, but it's very high intensity in the middle of the show. So I don't know, Matthew might
Work
have
all day.
Well, actually,
I'm always collecting news. Like most of the news we show on the show is collected by me throughout the day, and then it's compiled by Andrew for the stream. So, and then also short war video days. That's a whole nother thing too. Emails, any type of any other activities, business operation wise, is all on me for that front. So it's a lot of news or a lot of work for us both, actually.
Yes, actually it is. But I was talking about just the stream, I think they were asking about that. I was like, well, for the stream at least. Because, I work like a couple of hours before the show putting together all the news for the stream on the map and everything. And then you do the polls, which is like just right before the stream. And then we do the show. And then you do a lot of work in the midst of the show. I think that's what I was also interested. Not all of our work loads and responsibilities, just the live stream part of it. But I do hope that does address that well. But we do it for the love of the game, see? Matthew does it for the love of the game. I do it for the love of the game. We all do it for the love of the game. That's the only thing that keeps us going every day. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rydog, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Rydog, for that support. He said, new watcher, love all the info, guys, and thank you.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for loving all the info. We try our best. And I do thank you, Master, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Dago, who said, can't Ukraine focus on sinking the Kerch Bridge and LSA?
And not really. It's not even really that strategically important anymore. That's why they haven't hit it, and that's why here on the channel we haven't really cared about them hitting it for a long time, because they don't really use it much anymore for military support and supplies. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Sean Ryder. And thank you very much, Sean, for that $2 support. And with that, folks, that is our last super chat to address. And it's now time to jump into our live chat questions, our Morse code decoders, right now. And we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, Heroic Fluffiness, Kush Cooper, Cyan Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse says for today, they said, let me get rid of this idiot in the chat first, though, by the way. My brain's getting tired. I can't multitask like that right now. But anyways, our Morse code tonight says Iran is really messing around a little too much. How are these goofballs getting away? LLT, LSA.
And ding, 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 and that is the sound of the money. And you all got that dead on the nail. That was the jackpot. You all got it correct. Oh, yippee, oh, howdy. And I got to congratulate the Springer and Signal Corps for always getting that correct, because you always get that right time and time again. It's truly amazing and incredible to know that you all know Morse code, because I have no clue what it even says. And I've been putting those in for 4 straight years. And yet you all know it right off of the head. And so a huge thanks to you all once again. And with that, folks, While we're all getting wiry and tired back here behind the scenes, I'll be honest with you all, I think I've been dealing with caffeine overdose most of the show. I think that's why I've been feeling a little bit picked towards the latter half of it. We are going to be getting 3 live chat questions because we're currently overtime, and then we're going to be rounding out this stream for the night, oh boys. And so with that, we're on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Clancy Woods, who said, I've heard rumors that we haven't attacked Iran because they have some sort of dirty bomb, possibly. And is there any credibility to the rumor?
And I feel like that's highly unlikely because, like, people could say that about Venezuela, yet we eventually did attack him and take Maduro out of the country. So we're really more so having to operate on our own timetable with a million factors involved. But the Iranians don't have some sort of ultimate, they beat us card in their back pocket like a dirty bomb. So with that, I hope that has addressed it well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Jay Bagwell, and he said, could the information of the secret nuclear tests come from the Chinese general that was alleged to have leaked the information about China's nuke program a short while back?
Oh, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying, Jay Bagwell. Like, I put two and two together on air. I was like, they accuse him of giving nuclear secrets to the United States. And then this comes out from the United States saying that they now know about this thing, which is a nuclear secret of the Chinese. So I think that that is the case. I think that Cheng Yuzha did share that information with the United States, and that's what the Chinese got him on, possibly. So I do thank you for asking an incredible question, friend of the LSA, Jay Bagwell. And I hope that does answer that well, in my opinion, because I'm in that camp. I think that is the case. And also that ties up that whole story in a nice little bow, if that is the case. So it makes it a full, complete story. We know what secrets he sold to the United States. We know that he did sell secrets to the United States, where he just told us secrets without even getting paid, and that wraps up that whole story, and we now know why that happened and what he's told us, which is great to know if that is the case. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Rich, who said, in your opinion, would a Russian financial collapse cause Putin to attack NATO?
It could. It definitely could, because if they're left without any recourse or any options, they might try and force the threats of a nuclear conflict on NATO by getting in a conventional war with them. So that way we would be forced to give them concessions, otherwise face a possible tactical and strategic nuclear exchange. So it is possible. It is raising the risk, but this is something at this point that we inevitably have to do because the Russians are playing all or nothing, and we can't give them everything and end up with nothing on our end. So they're kind of forcing our hand to where we basically have to get very close to the very precipice of the end of humanity and then hope that we're able to recover it from there, generally, from what we would see at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I had to thank you all massively on both behalf of myself and Enforcer Matt for watching the stream tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have so many of you all here. Great heavens. We had 17.3 thousand people here at the peak, and 141,000 people have watched the stream before it ended. Yippee and howdy, that's a lot of people who've been here watching this, and of course we're always honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of you all consider this channel to be your primary source of news. I hope that our news has been well researched and thoroughly thought out tonight, and we had very interesting analysis and discussions, and hopefully we will have having many interesting discussions and chats with all of y'all. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is enough news to make into a short war video tomorrow, which may or may not be likely, we'll have to see, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that video. And so that, everyone, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava. Long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow, definitely at 10 p.m. Eastern on the stream, for tomorrow night, of course, to cover the rest of the breaking news throughout tomorrow. And if there is enough breaking news midday, there may be a short war video. We'll have to wait and see, though. But in the meantime, thank you all for joining us once again, and we will see you all tomorrow. And in that case, also, by the way, a huge shout out to the 141,000 plus people that were here by the end of the stream, a whopping amount of people, and we appreciate every single one of you. And with that, we'll see you tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine. Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.